They don't want anybody living out in the boonies. Anybody that's got a couple of acres of land and his own water supply and can grow his own food and that kind of thing, or have some sheep or some chickens, these people are a threat to the collectivist society because they aren't going to go to the politicians and say, please feed me, please clothe me, please give me shelter. They tend to be independent.
So today I found out that the church that I go to signed a deal with the nation of Israel, along with thousands of other churches in the US, to allow geofencing to track its congregation's user data and target propaganda. That's weird.
You got big black tubes of cock on your roof. You got big black cock on your roof. Hey bro, you got some black cock on your roof. Black cock on your roof. Black cock on your roof, bro. Oh, thank you. You
got something on your top.
Bro, you got 2 tubes of black cock on your car, man. 2 tubes of black cock. You've got black cock on your car, man. All right.
Do you think this is a normal flight pattern? Passenger jets don't have to cut big banks like this. What, did they forget where they're going? Also, the sky is being microwaved as we speak. Think about it. Think while it's still legal.
My sister calls herself a sexy grandma. Brother's on a diet for high cholesterol. Mama's out of touch with reality. Daddy's in the ground beneath the maple tree as the angels sing.
That is a compass.
Oh, okay. Where's it pointing to?
I don't know, because I'm pretty sure that's south and that's north.
Oh, okay. What? What happened?
You're not in VR chat anymore. It's showing your room in real life.
That's not possible. Oh, no, 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 no.
Dude, I thought... Oh.
If you're always eating shit from here, you're a fucking idiot. If you're coming to get your food from here, you're a fucking idiot. If you're drinking stuff like this, you're a fucking idiot. If you're eating stuff like this, you're a fucking idiot. If you're eating stuff like this, you're a fucking idiot. If you're eating fucking cereal, you're a fucking idiot. If you're drinking this kind of shit, you're a fucking idiot. If you're eating this kind of shit instead of butter, you're a fucking idiot. If you're drinking fizzy drinks, you're a fucking idiot. Fucking idiot. Fucking idiot. If you're getting your food from the butchers, you're not a fucking idiot. If you're getting lots of eggs, you're not a fucking idiot.
Not a colonial project because you can't colonize land that was already yours over thousands of years.
Listen, what you guys are doing, you're supporting evil, and then you dare to do this in the name of Judaism and the Jewish religion. This is an embarrassment to our people, and this is a desecration of God's name. The state of Israel is a movement of terrorism, started terrorism way before anybody spoke about it.
Of course I'm a Jew. We're humanitarian Jews that are against murder. I'm 73 years old. I know since I was 14 that Israel is not a democracy, has never been a democracy. We are here for the rights of people to eat and live and have water and have their homes returned.
Bad boys, what you want? on all of my mistakes. Chevrolet 4x4, como te han visto llegar. A veces al sinaloense y otras veces al parral. Es un vato muy pesado que no se sabe rajar.
The B, it's M to 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 the B, bang.
When I come home from work, I'm fiending for an 8-ball. I got crack on my mind, I'm hearing cocaine call, telling me to beep the dealer to deliver me stuff. Keep it a secret from my wife, cause she thinks I don't use drugs. There I was, bleeding from my nose, and damn, I couldn't breathe, but I'm still thinking.
I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but the whole thing about us living in a simulation, whoever picked me as their video game character needs to step it the fuck up, alright? I got no money, got no career, my nose is stuffy, the weather sucks. Put in some fucking cheat codes, man, goddamn.
What are you doing?
Oh, I'm just being you for the day.
What do you mean?
Playing video games, drinking a beer, having some snacks, just sitting around doing nothing. What are you doing?
I'm being you for the day.
Oh, really? So you think I just stand in the kitchen and stare out the window all day?
No, I'm trying to think of ways to start an argument.
Woman in jail accused of killing her own husband, and she...
You're looking at a 187-ton log train, and we're about to pull it with our tough new Chevy Cheyenne. It's a 3/4-ton pickup like this, with full-time 4-wheel drive and standard 350 V8 engine, equipped with options you can order through any Chevrolet dealer. We've also added auxiliary rear springs, because we're overloading far beyond normal capacity. Watch. They're moving. Our 3/4-ton Chevy Cheyenne is actually pulling 187 tons on this level road. Obviously, we don't recommend you abuse your truck like this, but we do want to show you in a dramatic way how tough we build our Chevy trucks. Chevy Cheyenne, built to give you lasting value. Chevy.
Roll Tide.
God damn it!
Rolls-Royce, triple black, I'm Geechee Ho. Ballin' in the club, bottles like I'm Meechee Ho. Rose, that's my nickname. Cocaine running in my big vein. Self-made, you just affiliated. I built it ground up, you bought and renovated. Talking plenty capers, nothing's been authenticated. Funny you claiming the same bitch that I'm penetrating. Hold the bottles up. Where my comrades? What a...
They will get medical screenings and then go to their home countries.
What? No, stop. No. Camilla.
No, they won't.
And this is where the story once again does not make any sense, because you're telling us that this is no big deal, not a public health worry, but if you follow the money, the market is actually telling us a completely different story. Barron's, how hantavirus made Moderna a must-own stock again. And it just so happens that on May 8th, 2026, Moderna shares surged approximately 12 to 18% following announcements of the positive data regarding their mRNA pipeline, which coincided, coincidentally, with the reports of a hantavirus outbreak on a cruise ship. What perfect timing. Now, this next part is quite interesting. An NBC News report stated that prior efforts to develop a hantavirus vaccine have stalled because outbreaks tend to be rare and occur in poor countries where pharma is less likely to invest. And that right there is why nobody trusts big pharma, nobody trusts the government anymore, nobody trusts the media, because nothing is ever done in this country for any other reason than making money. Am I suggesting that public health officials are toying with the idea of introducing a deadly disease so big pharma could reap the financial rewards? No, I would never do such a thing. But it would be kind of convenient if all of a sudden there was a human-to-human transmissible strain of hantavirus that was suddenly, shall we say, endemic in the United States and in Western Europe, places where it did not exist prior to this cruise ship outbreak, and more importantly, markets where big pharma currently makes 70 to 80% of their money.
Shelf and poured something that looked like cooking oil into a small diesel tractor. The engine turned over on the first try, no hesitation, no cough, no black smoke. I stood there for 15 minutes waiting for it to stall. It never did. And when I asked him where he bought the fuel, he looked at me like I had asked the dumbest question in Lancaster County. He pointed to a field behind the barn. I grew it, he said. That was the moment everything changed for me. The plant is hemp, industrial hemp, cannabis sativa. And I need to be clear about something right now, because the confusion between hemp and marijuana was manufactured on purpose. Industrial hemp contains less than 0.3% THC. That is the psychoactive compound. You could smoke an entire bale of industrial hemp and feel nothing but a sore throat. The 2018 Farm Bill made it federally legal to grow, process, transport, and sell industrial hemp anywhere in the United States. It is as legal as corn, as legal as soybeans, as legal as wheat. But for 80 years before that federal bill, hemp was treated the same as a narcotic. And the reason had absolutely nothing to do with anyone getting high. It had everything to do with fuel and money. And four men who had more of both than anyone else in America. Let me start with what one plant actually does. Because once you understand this, the rest of the story will make you angry. Hemp seeds contain roughly 30 to 35% oil by weight. That oil can be extracted with a simple cold press, the same kind of press people use for olive oil or sunflower oil. Once you have the oil, it can be converted into biodiesel through a basic chemical process called transesterification. You mix the hemp seed oil with methanol and a small amount of lye, which acts as a catalyst. The mixture reacts. It separates into two layers. The top layer is raw biodiesel. The bottom layer is glycerin, which you can use to make soap. You wash the biodiesel with water, let it dry, and it is ready to pour into any diesel engine ever manufactured. Not a modified engine, not a special engine, any diesel engine. Because the diesel engine was never designed to run on petroleum in the first place, Rudolf Diesel built his engine in the 1890s in Germany. He filed his patent on the 28th of February, 1892. His paper was titled Theory and Construction of a Rational Heat Engine to Replace the Steam Engine. He called it a compression ignition engine. The fuel he envisioned was plant oil. Off a shelf and poured something that looked
While the wheels keep turning in the back of my mind, I don't wanna take a long
not.
Israel
has
not
threatened to nuke London and Paris and Berlin and Rome. It's called the Samson option. They said if the Western democracy...
And you say you're not a crackpot conspiracist.
There's a book by Seymour Hersh called The Samson Option.
Israel wants to nuke the West.
I didn't say they want to. I said they have threatened that if the Western states abandon Israel to be overrun, that they'll nuke us too. And I'm not saying that's always been the permanent doctrine, but it's called the Samson option, and it was their doctrine, at least in the 1970s. There's a book about it by Seymour Hersh. You can pretend like you've never heard of such a thing, but everyone else watching this can just Google up the Samson option and read it for themselves.
There is no serious
That's the second time you tried to say conspiracy to me as the...
Oh!
What do you do?
Aisha, why do we even invite you to my house?
Dude, say now, what do you do?
Courtney, what are you doing? Now you got everything to claim.
I just can't take it no more. I'm getting a divorce. My wife is out after midnight every night, going from bar to bar, driving me nuts. Can't take it no more.
Well, what's she doing?
She's looking for me.
Court-fed Fred coming out of the Regal Beagle bar. Now he's wondering if the alcohol's kicking in as he spots something off in the distance. And of course it's Pookie the crackhead once again. Comes out of nowhere and lands in the perfect spot. Parks his ass right into the handicap zone. Man, talk about having your head on a swivel. Nowadays, you just never know whether you're going to come out of a bar and get attacked by a crazy messy zombie. And all you're trying to do is take your woman out on the town just for a night at the Regal Beagle. And then this happens. And now it's time to add Pookie to the Ludicrous Hall of Fame.
Bitch, get out the way. Get out the way, bitch. Get out the way. Oh, bitch.
You're going to want to hear this.
We opened a center in Silicon Valley back in 2017. And the woman who runs it, she's the next Facebook executive. I have software engineers and data scientists working at ADL. We're monitoring all this stuff. And we're working with all the platforms, by the way. Google and YouTube and Meta and Twitter and Reddit and Steam and Amazon, all these companies. From like Apple to Zoom, we work with all of them, okay? That's relevant because we've been working with Twitter now since it was founded. We worked with the old regime, working with the new regime. Like I'm talking to Elon. And we're trying to work with them.
He's literally bragging out loud about how they have daily meetings with all the social media companies. Sorry, not even just social media platforms. He said Zoom private conversations in order to censor speech they do not like. And let's just be 100% straight up. The ADL is not a civil rights group. It is an intelligence organization operating within the United States on behalf of another country.
We're involved in security for the Israeli president, Netanyahu. Did you meet the Israeli leader?
I'm sorry, I'm not answering any questions so I can speak to an attorney.
You sent photos of your penis erect? You told the boy you ruined your shorts, meaning you ejaculated while you were talking to him. You asked for explicit pictures of him. You say the age of consent in Maryland is 16. This boy is 15. You knew this was illegal. And you had multiple chances to not commit this crime, but you did anyway.
How could you not notice it making this noise?
Yeah, so this video goes to show that this is not popular. Not even the youth want it. Ironically, the youth that just put in all of their time and money into a degree that AI is about to take. Oh, and this lady's reaction, she's actually surprised that this isn't pop. She thought she was going to get cheers, and instead, this is what she gets.
What happened? The rise of artificial intelligence is the next industrial revolution. Whoa. What happened? Okay, I struck a chord. May I finish? Only a few years ago, AI was not a factor in our lives. Okay, all right. Okay, we've got a bipolar topic here, I see. Okay, and now AI capabilities are in the palm of our hands. And oh, I love it. Passion, let's go. Okay.
So this next video you're about to see, this is happening all over the country right now. They had all of this pre-planned. They don't care what you think. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you say. And that gap between the elite and us is just going to widen more and more and more.
Despite objections from people in town, an AI data center is coming to Kenilworth. Our Christine Quayle takes us inside a packed town meeting last night where local officials defended their decision.
People from all over Union County staging a protest right here at Kenilworth Borough Hall to try and stop the construction of an AI data center just down the street. Dozens gathering at the steps of Kenilworth Borough Hall with a clear message.
I know it might be too late to stop it, but I'm hoping that if we get the numbers of people out from Kenilworth and the surrounding communities, maybe we can get the municipal government to listen to us.
I wasn't notified at all. Appropriate? No. No, there was nothing appropriate about this.
Tensions boiling over even further once the Borough Council meeting got underway.
I know what boys like. I know what guys want. I know what boys like. I got what boys like. I know what boys like. I know what guys want. I see them looking. I make them want me. I like to tease them. They want to touch me. I never let them.
treat you bad.
Welcome to The Independent Review, a weekly podcast where we bring you the latest from the world of independent journalism.
Say your life was sad, yeah, but you lived it anyway. And so maybe your friends that stand around you watch you crumble as you fall down to the ground. And then someday your friends that stand beside as you were flying. Oh, you were flying oh so high. But then someday people look at you. They're what they call their own. They watch you suffer. Yeah, here you're coming home. And then someday we could take our time to brush the leaves aside so you can reach us. Hey, but you left me far behind. And I'm there, yeah. Didn't mean to treat you so bad, but I did it.
Here comes the world premiere of Pile Driver. Imagine a construction crew with the likes of Billy Jack Haynes, Bam Bam Bigelow, Morocco's superstar Billy Graham, and the Hulkster all in it. Can you imagine that?
No, I can't imagine that, but I'd rather watch this video than listen to your lousy voice for one more second.
Let's take you now to the world premiere of Pile Driver.
Sometimes love is like a slow dance. You can tiptoe around, but don't make a sound. You can make a little silent romance. But sometimes love sounds like a fight. It sounds like an argument. It sounds just like a power driver. Yeah, a power driver. Sometimes love, it just feels fake. First you think you're so strong, but something goes wrong. It feels like a great big mistake. But sometimes love feels just right. It feels so real. It feels just like a power driver. Yeah, a power driver. You're right beside her. Your heart's on fire. She got you hot wire. Higher, higher, power driver. Power driver. Well, sometimes love feels just right. It feels so real. It feels loud, loud, loud. Power driver. Power driver. Yeah. Power driver. Well, power driver. La, 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 power driver.
Hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing? Put me down. I'm a foreman.
Welcome to the Independent Review. Live on AM Wake Up on Odyssey, Rumble, Substack, and the Indie News Network on Twitter. Let's jump to this first clip with Dave DeCamp from antiwarnews.com.
Hey, this is Dave DeCamp from antiwar.com, and welcome to Anti-War News. This episode is sponsored by Expat Money, and it is about 9:30 on Wednesday night here in Virginia on the east coast of the U.S. as we are getting started. We're going to start with a few stories about Israel's various wars in the region. The first story at the top of antiwar.com, Israel bombs vehicles in Lebanon, killing 12. So this article here is from Jason Ditz. So Israeli airstrikes were targeting Lebanon's main coastal highway south of the capital city of Beirut today, hitting at least 7 vehicles and killing 12 people, along with wounding an unspecified number of others. The main strikes were reported earlier in the day between Beirut and the key port city of Sidon, but there were other subsequent strikes further south near Sadiyat and Nakura. Among the slain included a woman and her 2 children. So it seems like they were bombing these highways as, you know, they were filled with cars. And the health ministry said later that 10 other people were killed by other Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon, bringing the total death toll for the day to at least 22, including 8 children. So quite a few children killed in Lebanon on Wednesday, and you can see this picture here is the aftermath of one of the strikes on the cars. And the IDF did not comment directly on why they were attacking the highway and bombing all these cars. They claim that they attacked Hezbollah infrastructure in some of these towns that they targeted in the south. But as I'm aware, no reason why they bombed these cars here. And the Norwegian Refugee Council issued a statement on Wednesday calling for Israel to respect the ceasefire, which, I mean, there's just no ceasefire in place. That's very clear. And to allow for the safe return of refugees to their homes. More than 20% of Lebanon's population is estimated to be displaced. Just a huge, huge number of people, a catastrophe for the residents of southern Lebanon and other parts of the country as well. So it's just a really, really horrible situation in Lebanon, and it doesn't seem like it's really getting much attention here that war is still raging. So the next one here, Israel has killed 120 in Gaza since the start of the Iran ceasefire. So Israeli attacks on Gaza have significantly escalated since Israel halted strikes on Iran under the ceasefire that started on April 8th. And this was reported by Reuters on Wednesday, citing data from Gaza's health ministry and the conflict monitor, the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data, or ACLED. And according to the health ministry numbers, since April 8th, Israeli attacks in the Strip have killed at least 120 Palestinians, including 8 women and 13 children. 20% more fatalities than the 5 weeks that preceded the ceasefire with Iran. So a very large number of Palestinians being killed here. And this picture here is of a man named Lafi al-Najjar who is blind, and he lost his son in an April 28th Israeli strike, which I covered at the time. His son was only 9 years old. And you could see this picture here is of his funeral outside the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. And he spoke with Reuters, and this is what he said, quote, "The war is still ongoing. It stopped in the announcement, but in reality and on the ground, the war has not stopped," end quote. And so the ACLED recorded an increase of Israeli attacks in the month of April by 35% compared to March. And as we've seen, many of the attacks have targeted Gaza's police force, as Israel is seeking to disrupt Hamas's control of the area of Gaza where the civilians are crammed into, which is about 40% of the territory. They want to create chaos in those areas. As we are always covering, the Israel is just constantly, blatantly violating this ceasefire deal. And the attacks continued on Wednesday. At least 8 people were wounded by strikes across Gaza. And according to the latest number from the health ministry, at least 856 have been killed since the deal was signed in early October. And the U.S. has stayed quiet about these constant Israeli violations. The so-called Board of Peace, the body that was established by the ceasefire deal that is supposed to oversee this ceasefire, they're just blaming everything on Hamas, saying that it's because Hamas is refusing to disarm that the deal is not moving forward. And Hamas has, said that they will disarm if it's linked to a path toward a Palestinian state, but they're also saying that they're not going to discuss disarmament seriously until the first phase of the ceasefire deal is actually implemented. And there's a lot of kind of false ideas out there that Hamas did agree to disarm. What happened was back in October, September, October, I forget exactly when it was, but the White House released a 20-point plan for Gaza. And part of it was Hamas, the demilitarization of Gaza, destruction of the tunnels, and Hamas disarming. And both Israel and Hamas agreed that those points are a good framework for negotiations, for reaching a lasting deal. They did not sign a deal, agreeing to all 20 of those points. The deal that they signed called for a complete halt to all military operations, Israel pulling back to an agreed-upon line, which was the yellow line, and not moving into, the territory that they withdrew from, and they've been doing that. And then Hamas's responsibility under that the initial ceasefire deal was to release all of the Israeli hostages and the bodies that they have, and help recover the other bodies that find the location and everything. And that all happened. So, it's not, Hamas did not sign a piece of paper that said that they would agree to disarm. And the idea of the ceasefire deal is that the so-called international stabilization force is supposed to replace the Israeli soldiers, and then the Israeli soldiers pull back as the other stuff happens, the demilitarization. And obviously just none of that is happening. But there's just a false notion that there was a deal signed when it's just not. There was nothing beyond this initial ceasefire deal to halt the bombings and everything, and they haven't stopped. So Israel is clearly in violation of that deal. They also have not consistently allowed in the number of aid trucks that they agreed to. So it's really three ways that they violated it: continued attacks, aid restrictions, and moving further, that yellow line further west. All right, so the next one here, Israeli troops raid villages in southwest Syria and detain civilian. This is another one from Jason here. And there's virtually, I think, zero media coverage of this outside of, you'll see it from Syrian media and the Syrian Observatory, but that's basically it. So Israeli troops have carried out multiple raids against villages in Dara and the Quneitra governance on Wednesday in Syria, according to Syrian state media. The raid in Dara targeted the often raided village Al-Mariah and involved the detention of a local for unknown reasons, and locals reported a growing amount of Israeli drones in the area ahead of the raid, and the local who was detained was held for a few hours before being released. And this happens a lot in these villages. The IDF pushes further in, they detain some people, usually let them go later, and there's no explanation for why they're doing this, because the IDF isn't putting out statements, nobody's asking them about it. And so this is, since December 2024, so it's been a long time now, Israel has been occupying these areas of southwestern Syria, beyond the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. And, they've slowly pushed further into some of these villages, and it's the people living there are just dealing with this reality of this Israeli occupation that doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. So the next one here, report says that the Saudis bombed Iraqi militias in the Iran war. So Saudi Arabia bombed targets in Iraq linked to the country's Shia militias that are aligned with Tehran during the U.S.-Israeli bombing campaign against Iran. This was reported by Reuters on Wednesday. So we've seen all these reports about the UAE bombing Iran, which Iran previously alleged, also the Saudis bombing Iran, and now the Saudis apparently bombed Iraq. And sources told the outlet that Saudi fighter jets launched strikes against targets near Saudi Arabia's border with Iraq, and that some attacks occurred around the time the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran came into effect. The report said the Saudi strikes targeted areas from where missile and drone attacks were launched against Saudi territory. It's unclear if there were any casualties in the Saudi attacks. Sources also told Reuters that rocket fire from Kuwait targeted militias in Iraq at least twice, and that one attack killed several fighters and destroyed a facility used by Kateb Hezbollah, which is one of the main Iran-aligned militias in Iraq. And it's not clear, so these attacks came from Kuwait, not clear if it was the U.S. military, which obviously has bases in Kuwait, or if it was the Kuwait's armed forces. And throughout the bombing campaign in Iran, the U.S. was launching heavy airstrikes against the PMF in Iraq, which is a coalition of Shia militias, mostly Shia militias, that was formed in 2014 to fight ISIS. They were absorbed by Iraq's security forces, and they have overlap with a group that calls itself the Islamic Resistance in Iraq that claimed, a lot of the drone attacks on U.S. bases. And so the U.S. killed dozens of PMF fighters in these strikes. They killed a few Iraqi military soldiers as well, which really angered the Iraqi government. But so I remember, because there was a lot of, it wasn't clear who was carrying out all of these attacks. The U.S. was not claiming all of their airstrikes. And now there's evidence, we had, there's this claim that was a secret Israeli base was set up and that the Israelis bombed the Iraqi military at one point too. So the Saudis were also apparently involved in the strikes. I mean, Iraq was really, really exploded during this war, and it was hard to kind of parse what exactly was happening there with all these different players. But this is kind of a pattern we're seeing again, all these reports, and like it really goes to show how this was a regional war, and it was immediately. It's not like it was after a few weeks. It was the U.S. and Israel started bombing Iran. Iran started launching attacks across the region, and then the militias in Iraq started targeting the U.S. as well, and it really blew up right away.
Next, we have this clip from Ryan, Cristian, and Charlie Robinson.
Going over the crazy madness that we're all experiencing. We were just talking off air just a little bit about that exact kind of idea of just how the kind of evolving opinion and awareness of people, that is a very, very positive thing that I think is being talked about, being seen, being discussed in varying ways. I think, like we were kind of hinting at, that people aren't even really sure what they're seeing, and they're being dragged to different events, in this case of Derek Bros, and becoming aware of a conversation they didn't even know was being had. Like the joke I said a second ago is, there is something other than Biden and Trump, and people are on that path, which is very nice to see. How are you, Charlie? Good to see you.
I'm great. I'm great. I had the opportunity to catch Derek Bros's kickoff of his activation tour last night in downtown Denver, packed house. That's what we were talking about. Derek asked the audience how many people were dragged to this event tonight by somebody who thought that might be interesting to them. And a few people raised their hands, and I had a chance to talk to one of the guys afterwards and to kind of gauge, like, well, was it what you thought it was? And his response was, I love it. I love all this. I just didn't know this was happening. I didn't know there was a place where people were talking about these things. I didn't know that there were people who were writing books about this. It was for this guy, it was eye-opening that we had all been conspiring to get together and meet. And I think there was a part of him that felt a little offended that nobody told him. Well, if finally somebody did, and he thought, oh, this is great. I'm around like-minded people. This was wonderful. And another guy said that something similar. He wasn't really dragged there. He went willingly, but again, he just didn't know that was a thing. That the meetup is called Liberty on the Rocks. It's fantastic. It's a group. They do it, I think, twice a month in downtown Denver. I've been a speaker there a few times, but it's more than that. It's other human beings who feel similar to you, and they see things that you see, and you feel a little less alone in these moments. And the thing that's I'm always I'm not surprised anymore, but I was surprised the first couple of times, is the age range. And I'm thinking it's kind of a libertarian thing. It's all going to be 20, 30-year-olds, maybe 40-year-olds or anything. It's a lot of people in their 60s and 70s that they know the difference. They've seen what it used to be and what it is now, and they have the perspective, and they're angry, and they're motivated, and they want to change things. So these live meetups are extremely important. I think we know that because when we went through COVID, we saw how they demonized bars and places where people might come together and meet and, conspire and talk about the things that they're seeing. They had to shut those down. So these live events are clearly important. And you can understand that by how enthusiastic the state is to try and shut them down every chance they get.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting on that note about the age range. I think what I've seen, and there's many different facets of, endless, it seems, of different groups of perspective, going back a long way of different perspectives, but there's a grouping of, so let's say the kind of like the hippie, 60s kind of movement that we all know to a degree, exactly like we're seeing take place today, was co-opted or manipulated, or, but that doesn't mean there wasn't, there were real people within that, but there was a lot of them that I think sort of went through that, felt like they sort of had some level of momentum, and then went through the same process we all seem to go through, and then sort of like went into like, let's see if we can, get further into politics or maybe become politics. And there was this weird arc where you're finding people that were like the hippies then that are like these hardcore statists today through the system. And my point, I would argue that there's a lot of them that have like went through their own process of thinking that might have been the way to make this, and have now come full circle to realizing that the system is, that's the way I might read that, just as an interesting thought, that they would be more understanding of why the problem exists than most, because they've literally fought their way through it, trying to fight within the system, and I think that's what honest people will come to realize, sadly, is that it's designed to fail, So it's good to hear that, man. There's so many people out there who are interested, and it's profound when people finally realize that this conversation exists and there's something other than evil that you can choose. It's interesting,
Imagine that. Yeah. And in Acapulco is a similar thing too. There's at least a half a dozen ladies who I know every year I see that are in their 70s they've seen it. They've been there, they've done that. They were activists early on. They saw what that did, and they've always stayed sort of on the outside of the state. And I think that's important for sometimes the young people look and they go, wait, you guys are anarchists too? Like, you're old. You're supposed to be like, watching Price is Right and stuff. Like this, you're here. I think it's a good reminder for people that freedom crosses all age ranges and demographics. If you are looking for that, and the people last night and at the event, all age ranges, all colors, all demographics, really. The common denominator is we do not want the state to tell us what to do. We are adults. We behave properly, and we're not going to tolerate the overreach. So that this event that I went to is really kind of more local. I'd say more local based, which is nice because I don't, I deal more on the bigger geopolitical stage and not so much on local Denver politics, but it's nice to sit in on those meetings from time to time and hear how passionate they are. And they know, exactly like which politician is doing what. And we heard some really disturbing things last night about the state of where things are headed with regard to the creeping technocracy and the AI data centers, that there were people who had sat through meetings in the state capital is Denver. And so there's a lady who was sitting through these meetings and saying that she's overhearing people saying, as soon as Polis is out, we're just going to ram through all the stuff we've wanted to do. Get out of our way, doesn't matter. So she said something bad is coming technologically to Denver, to Colorado in general, in Denver in particular. And I don't doubt it. And I think that these the data centers, and one of the conversations we had last night is, wouldn't it be funny if the common denominator that brought us all together, right, left, anarchists, whatever, blue, green, black, white, were the data centers? That this one thing, everybody universally said, we don't want that. That's not okay with us. And we're willing to put away the temporarily ceasefire just to come after you guys with that. And so maybe that's the direction that things go. So if we're looking for a little bit of optimism here, it might come at the expense of some darkness, right? They're trying to cram these data centers in, but what if that was the bridge too far?
Yeah, it's a good point to make. And I think right now it's happening in a lot of different places. I was just talking about, I think you might've seen it. It went pretty viral. Steve on Wake Up showed it to me the day before of, forget her name off the top of my head. I reached out to her for a possible interview. She was talking about her local area and domain, literally people being removed from their homes because the government locally allowed that to be something that they're, what's the way she termed it? Basically allowing that in location. And then because the state's allowing it, they can argue that they can then, under whatever guise, national security or whatever the thing they claim, they can remove you from your land. And she's making the point that larger, that, you don't really own anything. And I agree with that, but at the alarming reality of that on top of, for example, what Jason Bassler's been highlighting, that what was it? I think 40%, 45% of all the data centers in the world are in the United States, or at least being owned and operated by the United States. And China, the one they're pointing to say is the big issue, is in that other 55% along with everybody else. And I forget the number of China off the top of my head. If you remember, let me know, but it's dramatically less. It was like 12 times or whatever what they have. And how can that make sense? How we can argue that we're in this big battle with AI. And then on top of that, he recently shared a Wired article that I went over last night talking about how this dark money campaign directly tied in a lot of other people as well, but I find it relevant. OpenAI, Palantir, Joe Lonsdale himself, and funding through that to manipulate, and I would argue manipulate people to think that China is racing to get to AI before the United States, and we have to, otherwise we can't control everything, even though it's not the case. So just painting that is a really dark feeling about what's coming. Go ahead.
I spoke to Hakeem Anwar yesterday. Take Back Our Tech, Above Phone, and he just released his AI data center map. You can go to aidatacentermap.org, and this is impressive. It's a map that has different layers. You can sort through aqueducts, high-powered tension wires, power generation centers. Each data center, you can hover over and get ownership statistics for it. And it's an interactive map. It's throughout the entire United States right now. It's very detailed. We played around with it when I recorded with him yesterday, and then I played with it for about an hour afterwards. If you're interested in taking a look in your local area to see where it is. Now, one of the things that he talked about that was really interesting was that you can predict where they're going to be before they put them there. And it had to do with the aqueducts. It had to do with the high-powered lines and the power centers. And if you had those three components, you were going to get a data center there. You were going to get a hyperscaler center there, which is even more dangerous. And he was of the, not just opinion, I think he had the facts to prove it. I asked him, is this an international problem? And he said, no, it's mostly U.S. It is almost exclusively U.S. problem. With and I think what he meant, not necessarily that there aren't data centers in China, because of course there are, but I think it's that there's no barrier, there's no pushback in China. You're getting the data center there because the government says, but this overreach where everything is just getting rammed through hasn't really kicked off yet in Canada the way it has here in the States. Not that it won't, maybe it will, but it was interesting to me. I made the assumption that like he was going to say, oh no, this is happening all across the Western world. In fact, he was saying it was almost exclusively limited to the U.S.
It makes sense, though. I mean, I'm sure we could find, like you're saying, examples in other locations. But what he's highlighting there is the agenda itself, not just the idea of having centers that manage data.
Right.
Like that's been there for a long time. But these centralized, massive 800-acre data, like this is about the control grid. That's what Catherine was just saying on Tucker. The idea that this is essentially, and this is what we're always been talking about. Like this is about managing that data and being able to utilize that for digital twin surveillance, predictive systems, and everything else they're talking about, not just to be able to, beat the AI race for China, and so that focus on the United States, I think, is obvious to the driving force behind it, which is the larger tech companies we're talking about. I was actually just talking last night about Kash Patel openly saying, I've let every major AI company inside the FBI. Paraphrasing. That's what he said yesterday. He said, I'll actually bring up the article after I say this. And then the point being that I've, basically AI is everywhere throughout this administration. And we can look into that and find out very clearly ICE and others. I mean, that's Palantir. And it's not just about Palantir, but it's about what we can prove Palantir is doing and what they're involved with. And then even worse, what we don't see, and then all the rest of them, OpenAI and the rest, and so that is so very concerning, especially when somebody as incompetent as Kash Patel, who probably doesn't even care about what might be happening behind his back, but the bigger picture there. And so these companies are, executing their vision. Now, who knows? Maybe they think this is best for us. That's not the point, though. It's the point is that what we see it representing. And Karp himself said essentially the same idea they're all doing, right? That if this rights may be an issue, like Mason, the lip service, like rights, something we're worried about, but we can't let China win or there won't be any. And it's
next we take a look at this clip from TrueStream Media.
Guys, I don't don't know about you, but I'm getting just a little bit sick and tired of hearing about how billionaires are just going to tell the rest of us how it's going to be and how we're going to live when they don't live like the rest of us. They don't even live in the same reality as the rest of us. So how the hell would they know what any of that even is? But we're just going to have a little bit of techno-feudalism, and that's just going to be great. That's just going to be fine, and we should just accept it. Case in point right now is Canadian billionaire Kevin O'Leary, who is now supposedly building the world's largest data center in Utah, although they keep saying everything is the world's largest. The one in Texas is supposedly the world's largest. The one in Ohio is supposedly the world's largest. Now it's Utah. Whatever. This thing is 62 square miles.
Why are you protecting? What are you protect us?
A very emotionally charged meeting as Box Elder County Commissioners moved to approve the Stratos project. That started with a protest outside before the meeting and then standing room only inside the huge exhibit hall.
And he's building it in Utah, and he's getting upset that people are getting upset about it.
Well, I'm actually the only developer of data centers on Earth that graduated from environmental studies.
He's making videos now about claiming that they're busing people into Utah.
But there are professional protesters that are paid by somebody, I don't know who,
to attend these county commission meetings, which were pretty much very last minute.
We think over 90% of the protesters are actually not people that live in Utah or Box Elder County. They're being bussed in.
But I don't think that's what happened anyway. I've seen a lot of people from Utah really angry about this.
I'm Caroline Gleich. I live in Utah. I ski Utah's mountains. I drink Utah's water. I breathe Utah's air. I ran for U.S. Senate here. My husband, Rob, and his family are from here. My family's lived here for over 2 decades. The hundreds of Box Elder County residents who showed up to that meeting, they live there. They farm there. They raise their kids there. The only person in this story flying in from out of state is Kevin O'Leary.
Even if they were bussed in, dude, you're Canadian.
People who live in Utah aren't stupid. They see this happening and they realize, why am I letting people who don't even live in my state make decisions for me?
You're not even from America at all. So why are you talking about other people are coming in trying to tell Utah how they're going to live when that's exactly what you are doing?
Kind of hypocritical.
But I'm from Texas. I will gladly drive to Utah just to protest you because that's called being an American. That's called the First Amendment. We have a right to protest here. We have a right to protest whatever the hell we want. You don't have to like it. It does not have to make any sense to you. But that's a right we have. It's enshrined in this country. So if I wanted to drive there from Texas just so I can protest your ass, that's my right as an American to do. You don't have to like it. I don't give a fuck. And the county commissioners in this Utah, they're acting like they weren't, voted into their positions and are supposed to be representing people either. They sat up on a stage and told people to grow the hell up.
For hell's sakes, grow up.
Just did whatever they wanted, even though everyone was obviously really pissed. And one of them decided to go do a podcast or something. And he's crying because people are outside of his house protesting him. And that's not the American way.
I personally am extremely frustrated. I didn't take this role on. I didn't get in the legislature. I certainly didn't get in the commission to do things to hurt people. That's never been my character. My whole personality is to do what's right by the people, if at all possible. And all I was trying to do is follow the law, follow what it tells me I'm supposed to do. I listen to attorneys, I listen to experts to say, this is really where you should go. This is what you should do because this is within the law. And I've done it. And now I'm being personally attacked. I'm being accused of taking bribes and all kinds of things that are just not true. They're just lies. I literally have police officers in front of my house. And that's not fair to me, but it's especially not fair to my family. And it's not fair to either of the other two commissioners either. And I have county employees that are nervous about their safety as well. And that is not the American way. It's certainly not the way of people in Utah. And I know it's not the way Box Elder County residents should be behaving. And I don't think it is the Box Elder County residents. I'm hoping it's not Utah residents. But to know that people are coming to protest and picket in front of our homes just makes me sick.
Bitch, that's exactly the American way. That is absolutely 100% the American way. Coming to your house and protesting you because you were elected to do a job you're not doing is 100,000% the American way. And actually, I will just let you know, you are lucky that that is all they're doing. You're lucky that protesting and holding up signs is all they're doing because we're in the 21st century and people are trying to be civil about this right now. But if this was 250 years ago and you were in a town called Boston, they would come into your house, they would take every stitch of your belongings and put it out on the lawn, and then they would burn your house down while you watch. So I'm just saying, like, having them protest outside of your house is actually the better option, and you should be lucky that's all they're doing right now, because the American way gets pretty dark if you really want to start talking about what that is. Kevin O'Leary's over here making video. You know what, dude? If you had just stayed with your billions of dollars buying watches to cry over.
Only one in the world.
Kevin O'Leary's tearing up after receiving his one-of-one custom-made AP. That is the Piece Unique AP Royal Oak Openwork.
Nobody would have cared. Nobody would have given a shit about you and your billions of dollars and your watches. No one would have cared. But when you do something that affects everybody else's daily life and existence on this planet, shocker, they care. It's just, we're not being told the truth about what's really going on here, and that's abundantly clear. You can't build something that's 62 square miles and uses 9 gigawatts of power, which is more than double the entire state of Utah, and then be like, it's just for some chatbots. It's just for some generative AI. We're just going to have a few robots that no one can afford.
The folks at Utah's Military Installation Development Authority, or MIDA, say this all started when they were approached by the Undersecretary of the Air Force, saying that there was a need, especially after an executive order calling for these hyperscale data centers signed by President Trump.
If an honest conversation was even remotely being had about what's actually going on here, people wouldn't be responding this way.
Then why won't they let people talk? Why won't they let us ask questions? It's false. This is not real information. And we sit here like it's okay. It's a charade.
But since you guys have chosen to obfuscate and lie and tap dance around the truth about what's actually all of this really is for and what's really happening here, this is the reaction you're getting, and you're acting surprised.
And after multiple interruptions, they decided to move into a smaller room and then broadcast it out to Zoom, which, of course, upset a lot of people.
This whole thing has been done in this way for this outcome to be the case. So, like, I don't understand how anyone's even shocked.
It's a really, really bad deal. We don't get anything for it other than we're losing land, we're losing water, and we're losing air quality.
But you can't just have a system that doesn't listen to people. You expect everybody to live in this society and abide by this society, but you're just going to order everybody around, tell everybody what to do, and expect everyone to just fall in line and quietly do it? I don't know if you know where you are. This is America. If you continue to push people and needle them and nudge them and, like, force them into this situation, you're going to get what you get, and it's not going to be pretty, and you're going to be having to do a lot more than cry on a podcast, okay? You're going to have to do a lot more than cry on a podcast about it, because it's going to be pretty fucking bad. People who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. I didn't make up the quote, that's just how it is.
I would like to solve the puzzle.
Next, we have this clip from the Indie News Network.
Who are these people?
We got to get to our Fuck Israel segment because they are forcing me to do one every week still because they are continuing to murder people with impunity. They continue to steal land, steal the resources underneath, and destabilize an entire region of the world while capturing narratives and media narratives in order to spin things either to deflect from what they're doing or to outright distract from what they're doing to get people looking at something completely different. We're going to start with this man who is a Pulitzer Prize winner, Mossab Abu Toha. He says he's so heartbroken. Israel, this was the other day, April 30th. Israel, this Friday or Thursday. Israel's just shot his 30-year-old aunt in the chest while she was sitting with her 3 young children in a school shelter in Jabalia camp. She's in critical condition. The bullet pierced her chest and exited through her back, devastating her lungs and spleen. The moment she was hit, she was holding her 1-year-old son. He fell from her lap as she collapsed and was found bleeding from one of his ears. He just spoke with his uncle, who told him that Israel had been using subsonic bullets lately. He said his sister is the second mother in the camp to be shot in the chest today. Please pray for her and our family. Her husband was abducted by Israel in November in 2024. We still have no word on his condition. Can you imagine having to live like that? With the specter of knowing that that's around and looming all the time? The perseverance. And of course, there's no medical facilities with anesthesia and proper, equipment to be able to really rehabilitate her. Just absolute monsters. But the monstrosity continues. The Global Samud Flotilla, we've talked about that in the past. Okay, they decided to do another trip to Israel with the largest collection of boats ever. And Israel decided that they were going to intercept, like in international waters, 700 nautical miles from Israel's waters, borders. This is illegal. It's kidnapping at sea. It's piracy. So what happened? They took 2 of these activists, Tiago Avila and Saif Abu Kash, and they've held them until today. Rumor has it, and they told their lawyers that they were severely beaten, tortured, threatened. I've got a couple of pictures there from the video. Crispin Flintoff shows solidarity with Saif and Tiago, who've both been kidnapped and beaten by IDF. Mainstream media and the bought political class duck a violation of international law, so we all have to speak up for them. And there's Tiago. Tiago's got some marks on his head you can clearly see. Maybe boot marks. I saw today on Twitter, unfortunately, that Tiago's mom passed away today while he's still in an Israeli prison. He also wrote a letter to his daughter, which I'm not going to read today. Here's Ali Amoro, who had been on one of the prior flotillas. An Israeli court has extended by 2 days, this was 2 days ago, the detention of 2 Global Samud Flotilla activists from a Gaza-bound aid flotilla after prosecutors sought a longer extension over security-related allegations. Lawyers for Tiago de la Vila and Saif Abu Keshik say no charges have been filed, because that's what they do. The 2 remain under interrogation and are being held in isolation, according to an advocacy group. They're trying to break them. Fuck Israel. Israel also quietly issued new maps that show its forces now control nearly 2/3 of Gaza, with a new orange line extending beyond the area agreed to in the October ceasefire. Why isn't every major news outlet covering the fact that Israel now controls nearly 2/3 of Gaza? This is insane.
Control of Gaza. It has sent new maps to aid groups, sources said, which have not been released publicly. The latest version shows a freshly restricted area marked out with an orange line. It extends.
Okay, so if you look, this is the original yellow line, which is plenty far enough. Now this new orange thing further extends from the middle here, right? And you see more down to the south as well from here. Now is coming up like to here.
Beyond the yellow line zone occupied by Israeli troops agreed in the US-brokered October ceasefire. Reuters acquired the maps and shared them with Palestinian researchers in the occupied West Bank. Jad Isaac, who heads up the Applied Research Institute Jerusalem, says the new line shows Israel now controls nearly 2/3 of Gaza.
The yellow line is amoebic. It keeps changing from one day to another. But roughly I can say that about 64% of Gaza now is excluded and totally under direct Israeli occupation.
Israel says the orange line sets out a restricted zone where aid groups must coordinate their movements with the military. It's to enable
and anybody inside that orange zone is killed
in a complex operational environment, according to Kogat, the Israeli military agency that controls access to Gaza. But thousands of Gazan families are now caught between the lines, according to Palestinian NGO network head Amjad al-Shawa. Civilians located between the two areas are facing a very difficult humanitarian reality, he says. Residents say they lack water and other supplies because aid groups are scared to send staff there. At least 3 Palestinians working with foreign aid groups have been killed in the new restricted zone. Israel's military said it had opened fire after identifying
systemic extermination. Look at that.
Al-Shawa says residents are also regularly being killed and wounded in the area. He says they aren't given warning when the line shifts. According to Kogat, the orange line boundaries are updated according to operational assessments. It declined to comment on the frequency of updates or whether it communicates them to Palestinian civilians. For displaced Gazan Mohammed Jundiye, dreams of going home are fading. We were hoping to return, and now we see that they created another line, he says. Aside from the yellow one, now an orange one. When will they stop?
Sadly, they're never going to stop. Nobody's going to stop them. The media excuses this fucking evil is right, Jim Tower. All right, it's awful. It's horrific. Fuck Israel. Look at these tent cities. These people all lived in these buildings until Israel decided that they were going to blow them up. You can't use October 7th anymore as the justification for all of this. Fuck you. Well, you wanted to use that because this was your plan the entire time. And now you're talking to Somalia or Somaliland about taking in all of these people right here that live in these tents. And if they're not going to take them in, Israel's just going to murder them. Or starve them out. Systematically. As long as it takes. It's fucking horrible. That's right, Kieran. Fucking cunts. Amen, brother. The cradle. Israeli attacks have also been ongoing across South Lebanon since this morning, including strikes over Arab Salim, Zautar al-Sharqiya, Srifa, Jebkit, Dware, and Kfar Dunin. And then I saw that there was also new drone footage from overhead in southern Lebanon, and it looks like Gaza. It's completely leveled to the ground. You can see the footprints of houses and streets that were there, and literally it's just outlines now. I mean, this was yesterday, or the other day, on Sunday. And again, nobody's stopping them from doing this to Lebanon, a sovereign country that never attacked Israel. Eva Bartlett, Indie Media Award honoree. Oh, sorry. Let me go back here. Wrong one. That's the button I wanted to hit. All right, let me read this. This is an article of hers where she says it's infuriating to see rabid Israeli colonials run around freely, abusing Palestinians and destroying Palestinian land, homes, and olive trees. Deir Istaya is personal to her. She spent time there in 2007 and got to know many of the families there. It's a beautiful Palestinian village that at the time back then was always being invaded and put under curfew or lockdown by Israeli army terrorists under false pretexts of security. So this is, some of their quotes that Eva had taken in. This was from her WordPress blog and some of the photos that she had taken from 2007. And now they're starting to burn down these olive fields, these olive tree fields. Beautiful, ancient. We've been talking about this guy for too long. Dr. Hussam Abu Safia. Once again, and this was just the other day, on April 30th, last Thursday, Israeli authorities have extended the detention of Palestinian Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, while he continues to be held under harsh and inhumane conditions, including torture and severe beatings that left him with fractured ribs. And you can be sure he's not getting the medical attention to rehab. Since October of 2023, more than 1,700 health workers have been killed in Gaza by the Israeli military. Terrorists. I mean, the Israeli military are the terrorists. Dr. Abu Safia must not become just another name on this toll. And this is a 2-minute, 25-second video from Euromed Monitor. I don't want to play the music because I'll get in trouble for that. New extension on the detention without any charges filed against him. And remember that now they have this rule where if they do charge him and he's found guilty, they've got 90 days to try him and they can hang him after that. It's horrible. Director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, arbitrarily detained by the Israeli army after it attacked and stormed the hospital. He walked into that tank, and that's the last time we saw him, other than being escorted in handcuffs. Doctor saved hundreds of patients and wounded, now facing inhumane conditions and torture inside Israeli prisons. He saw his son killed and then went back to work to operate and take care of other Palestinian children. Completely cut off from the outside world. He's lost more than 40 stone, 40 kilograms of weight. Subject to brutal beatings that fractured his ribs and bones. Like, what? I know, the punishment is the point. The torture is the point. He said 4 jailers that last July dragged him crawling to his lawyer. He was forbidden from lifting his head or back, blindfolded and shackled with iron chains, just treated like an animal. Here's his lawyer saying that he wasn't well. He's severely beaten. And then, of course, we have Dr. Yipeng Ji from Toronto, who's led this campaign to see his friend freed. Again, more than 1,700 workers through April 30th have been killed. The world cannot accept the killing of another doctor. This is from Euromed Monitor, by the way. Euromed Human Rights Monitor. Fuck Israel for that. I thought I had one more. I guess not. Wait, I had one more. Give me 1 sec. Let me find it in the document. I guess not. Settler attacks. No, that's it. That was it for Fuck Israel. Yay. Okay, we got through it faster than I thought we would. Fuck Israel. All right. Now I remember what it was, and I'll get to it in a few minutes because we're going to talk about the hypocrisy of World Press Freedom Day, which could have been part of this segment or could have been a segment on its own. I'm going to put it in the lightning round. So, stealing might lands. The only thing Netanyahu does is steal and kill since 1967. Israelis are evil on earth. Yes, I agree. Yeah, those aren't lines, those are people. Absolutely. Kieran recommends subscribing to the Crispin Flintoff show. I have not been a subscriber, but that was a good tweet, and I'll take your word for it. Man, it's just They continue to have no impunity on everything they do everywhere, it seems. And it's so disheartening to see them just get away with things that nobody else would. Nobody else would be able to get away with stuff like this. But somehow they're able to.
Next, we have this clip from Teace Snyder.
Hey Rebecca, so I'm recording this as a video because if I just wrote the text for it, it probably would come off as hostile because I speak very strongly and I do so with pointed facts. People absent those pointed facts can take it as if it's a personal attack. That's not the case. It is a clarifying of the historical record in accordance with the appropriate documented evidence to that effect, of which I have had the time to review thoroughly and in excess, in abundance, ad nauseum, to a point where I just want to throw open my hands and drown myself because it is so glaringly obvious at this point that it is appalling that other people have not taken it upon themselves to do so. So in the general sense, I get where you're coming from, that we're supposed to agree to disagree and be compassionate and heartfelt and all of the very important human characteristics that we are supposed to show at all times unto one another. But in the middle of an ongoing genocide, me being more than a little bit irked should be understandable. And the thing about the pandemic, which was not a respiratory person-to-person virus, that's been proven by 3 different people, each of whom have their own research teams and came to the same conclusions. One of them being Denis Rancourt. I've interviewed him personally, had him on the show, and he found that 17 million people died as a result of the experimental gene therapy. This is not a vaccine. It was an experimental gene therapy that was labeled a vaccine to trick people into taking it. And that about 80 million people have really profound, life-threatening illnesses that have yet to end their life as a result of it, and 400 million people have a compounding, incremental adverse effect. Other people who have come to the exact same conclusion are Edward Dowd. He looked into the dying suddenly phenomena, wherein we saw 1,000-fold increases of athletes dying spontaneously after getting the shot. And that isn't immediately. There's also a window of time, and everyone's different, so it's different for everyone. And then the third person is Mark Skidmore, and these are different individuals who have research teams behind them coming to the same fundamental conclusion. Your contention that it wasn't a genocide is completely inaccurate. It was a genocide. It was just done differently than conventional genocides. It was a genocide against people who did not comply. Now, it was also a genocide against people who did comply. And it's really important to understand that the experimental gene therapy isn't the same for everyone. Using electron microscopy in order to analyze what is in the vials, we have seen that it looks like a dump truck just put a bunch of shit in these, and every single one of them is different. Every single one. You can look at websites like, I think it's badbatch.org or something, that tracks mortality rate directly alongside of what people injected into themselves. But it isn't that simple, because this actually compounds and is exacerbated by other variables. The number one trigger for illness is actually stress. So I'd contend that a lot of the people who think that they died from the shot actually died from the stress of getting the shot, who died from the psychosomatic emergence and the hyperbolic way in which we can all approach something when it is very much a life and death situation. And then you have to look at the weaponization of the hospital protocols, the administering of remdesivir, the outlawing of alternative therapeutics. You have to look at the false claim of hospitals being overwhelmed when they were not. This being not my personal testimony, countless whistleblowers working in those hospitals have come forth to testify to this effect. So what we're looking at is actually a international collaborative genocide between nation states as presided over by the WHO and the CDC. Why? Because those are offshoots of the United Nations, which was created deliberately to subvert human populations under the notion of diplomacy, which is not accurate. This is a cartel pretending to be diplomatic on behalf of humanity when really they're just kind of bitchwit, neutered, and grotesquely deficient, to put it kindly. Their predecessor was the League of Nations, and that was set up post-World War, basically at the behest of, United Nations was set up post-World War. League of Nations was First World War, Second World War, clarifying different things. But even those were all the same fundamental objective. It is about redrawing and reorganizing nation states at the behest of what's called Anglo-American establishment. Carroll Quigley, military and historian, the mentor of Bill Clinton, talked about having access to the Council on Foreign Relations internal documents and the various different means and mechanisms that they use to subvert entire nation states and civilian populations. This was a genocide, only it's on a larger scale than all previous genocides. And it's one that was a human experimentation campaign, which is a violation of the Nuremberg Treaty and is a war crime on its face. So everyone who participated in this, I mean, coercion is a violation of medical ethics, so anyone who continued to exist as a medical professional in an environment of coercion is not a qualified medical professional. Period. Exclamation point. If you disagree with that, you are categorically wrong in every single way, and you need to return to a point of understanding the significance of ethics when it applies to whether or not you consider, and not you specifically, but medical authorities consider themselves qualified. People kind of just gave that a free pass. Okay, well, let's return to the point that I made previously of what was inside of the vials. Every single one of them different. Why is that? Because it's actually a vast human experimentation campaign. A lot of it was also placebo, too. Not everyone's going to interact with the shot the same way. So what that is human experimentation campaign. It's a violation of informed consent, which is another breach of medical ethics. So people who are in an environment of coercion, turning a blind eye to the violation of informed consent, while human experimentation is going on, and it's not actually a vaccine, it's an experimental gene therapy on record, yeah, no, sorry. The public conception of what happened is diametrically opposed to the reality. What happened was in a vast, elaborate human experimentation campaign at the behest of oligarchs that create organizations that on their face look like they're helping people, but even from the WHO's director, she had previously gone on record saying that she's basically just listening to whoever funds the organization at any given time, and that typically pivots back and forth between the United States and China, both of which are just industrial vectors to hide their occulted controllers. So much of what the conceptual framework by which people go about approaching the subject is illusory. It's made up. It's propaganda. It's state propaganda. It's much akin to like if I were to try and talk to a Zionist about October 7th, they'd be like, we were attacked, and no, you weren't. Most of the people who died were murdered by the Israeli government because it was a deliberately set up false flag in order to then pave the way for a planned genocide in Palestine, which was a byproduct of a much earlier agreement called the Balfour Declaration, which was the previous colonial holding of that nation to then, as a contingency of entering into world war, promise the issuance of that land to whomsoever they wanted to give it to. The Jews were previously occupied Uganda and a number of other different countries, but they wanted that place specifically. In other words, there are multi-generational agendas that have been sequentially built before us such that we more or less exist in a scripted reality. The problem is that it's a very sophisticated script, and it's not something that the average person knows well enough to be able to actually speak from the heart. They kind of just tune into the superficial veneer of the actors that are in office, and they're all actors. Biden and Trump are identical. Barry Soetoro, you know him as Barack Obama, was groomed from an early age in order to take office. You can look at like Jimmy Carter being a peanut farmer who was solicited by the Trilateral Commission. All of these different people. I mean, even Reagan was a literal actor. It's like Clinton was a coke dealer and a prolific rapist in Arkansas. If you get into like what these people actually are, they are straight fucking demonic. But what they are, and I could do a good Obama impersonation for you, it's like, I believe in hope and change. We're supposed to go out there and believe in our fellow man. And by having an emotional effect on one another, people won't inspect the details, and they'll attack anyone who expects them to inspect those details. You're living under a spell, all of you are. You have been cast, or as to say, these people have been cast in roles, who then go out there and kayfabe play against one another to give you the illusion that there's a separation when there isn't. It is a uniparty. It is not just a uniparty in the sense of the United States, which is a Zionist-occupied government and has been for a very long time, but even preceding that, it was really just the intelligence apparatus was an extension of MI6 and MI5. So this goes back to the Great Game. This is hundreds of years in the building. And the pandemic which was not a respiratory virus, was a multitude of different things, okay? There was novel instances of poisoning campaign, basically. And that's partly through mask wearing and stress and not being out in sunlight and all these little qualifiers that affect people differently. It was also certain swabs were poisoned, certain areas were poisoned. That's where you get into virus-like particles. I know people who didn't get vaccinated, didn't get the shot, and still got that weird synthetic sickness where they lost their sense of taste and smell. Those are targeted instances of poisoning that is told to the public is a respiratory virus. But respiratory viruses do not stop on provincial or state lines. And via the research of the previous three members or people I had mentioned, that's exactly what this fucking thing did. Based on state lines, the respiratory virus would or would not stop at certain places and certain times, which is insane. The primary mortality spike happened post-injection schedule, and it's very important that it was the weaponization of hospital protocols that was most responsible of all. This is the kind of thing when elderly people are given a latex glove full of warm water so that they have the illusion that they're holding someone's hand as they're put into solitary confinement to die. That's a fucking genocide. Sorry, it is. If you don't understand that because of the conventional framework by which genocides have conventionally been perpetrated and are attempting to use that as the pretense by which you provide insight to what transpired, you are wrong. The persecution campaign that we endured under COVID was monumental and excruciating for everyone. It was significantly worse so for those of us who chose not to go along with it, but all the more spoke out against it. They literally built camps, rounded people up, and sent them there. They would break into people's homes if they had too many people in them. This was a state-sanctioned, enforced, sponsored, mandated, and let's just say demonically assimilated mindset that so many people were cowed by, they remain blind to this day. That's why I say you are all under a spell. It is something that would require hundreds, if not thousands of hours of the review of meticulous data sets in order to then differentiate and delineate between public proclamations of what happened versus what actually happened. That is all I have done for the last 5 fucking years. I do this on an extremely high level with the top journalists in the field, forensic historians who have had assassination attempts against them, who have been whistleblowers, be it from the Church of Satan or speaking out against Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which was allegedly supposed to protect whistleblowers, but it doesn't. It hangs them out to dry. I am really sorry to tell you that all of the different people that you would turn to in an electoral capacity are not your friends. They are deceptive to the very end. They are installed. They are not elected. You have no say in anything. And the mythos by which people to continue to return to a Santa Claus mentality of our reality is ultimately the kind of things that will facilitate the murder of their friends and family. It is a slow motion genocide. It is multifaceted, convergent, and extends into the future of our life. How is that? That gets into the technocratic agenda. Technocracy being a movement that started in the early 1900s in order to redraw the world stage, much akin to how the Treaty of Versailles was just an unrealistic contract that gave a 20-year rearmament period to then have Wall Street fund the Second World War. And the IB Farben plants that Germany depended on were not bombed in that period. Why? Because it was a controlled demolition of Europe in order to crush Germany and have America emerge as the prominent superpower after that war. All right? Even from the perspective of like, just look at like, what's the name of the thing? Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, number 2, passed under Obama. That gives every news reporting agency in the United States legal precedent to lie to you. Everything on the news is a lie. And then combine that with the fiduciary responsibility that these various different news organizations have to report fraudulently. They are literally monetarily incentivized to lie to you. If you do not unplug from the state propaganda that you take at face value and give me agree to disagree about objective, verifiable, demonstrable truths that determine the life of your fucking kids, lady, what the fuck? So where I am at with geriatric, presumptuous, emotion-based people who off the cuff say that, well, our tone of voice about these things is more important than, well, people floating face down in the river. Sorry, honey, I gotta tell you. The fact that you would even approach it that way tells me that you do not understand the state of things, or how bad they are, or how bad they're gonna get. This is a genocide. It's a slow motion one being done in an alternative means that you are not privy to, have not reviewed the evidence for, and then are inclined to shirk away from because what has been enacted is equivalent of what I call gaslight gas chambers. That's when they create the very technological infrastructure around you that slowly clamps down to then asphyxiate you. That's what we're seeing happening. And the only way that's able to be done is keeping people in a perpetual state of moving on from one thing to the next thing, psyop after psyop, incident after incident. I mean, just look at ICE. That is straight up fascism. We know that. But that's not specific to Trump. You look at the National Defense Authorization Act, that was signed under Obama or under Bush, but it was written by Biden. This is a hand-to-hand momentum of people who are all in it together. You've been watching a reality TV show, thinking that it's reality, and you need to change the channel. You need to. Your kids are not going to be okay if you all keep acting this way. I have attempted to have this conversation in a nuanced, emotionally calibrated way with my father for 5 years straight. He's not there. He does not exist. The only thing he cares about is whether or not he appeases Linda. And that's because, given the trajectory of his life, his mom died early, his sister died young, my mom cheated on him and divorced him. He's terrified of losing the women in his life, and if he loses Linda, it's basically the equivalent of feeling like he is going to die. It is very much a felt sense of pressure to acquiesce to the cultural climate that is created largely by women, who view this through an emotional lens rather than taking the time to look at how war is waged in the contemporary. That's via fifth generational warfare and full spectrum dominance. The military term for this is called a kill box. It is the geographic regions that you stipulate by which you will go about systematically killing things by every single means necessary. That's why I had previously asked you to ask Larry if war gives a shit about your feelings. Gotta tell you, honey, it doesn't. Doesn't give a fuck. That's not how this works. But feelings are the most successful way in order to go about murdering people. Why? Because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. So they'll just go back to the environment that feels comfortable for a time as the gas slowly gets turned up. Very, very slowly, in a war of attrition, in a death by 1,000 cuts, where it seems like there's nothing you can do, but hey, guess what? There's a lot that you can do. You can inform yourself about the reality, not the picture that was painted to look like reality that you have all been worshiping in Plato's cave. So what am I supposed to say if you don't understand the various different threads of nuance that were touched on and elucidated on in the presentation of the 10 stages of genocide? Because she talks about the technocratic agenda. Do you know what that is? Because I mentioned it when I was talking here. If you don't know what that is, then you're missing key parts of what she was alluding to. It isn't just the persecution campaign in that window, it's how that was the starting off pistol for the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. We're starting to see that with the data center rollouts now. The poisoning of water. We're starting to see it with SSRIs, like 20 or 30% of the population is on them. That's literally not capable of weighing in on the conversation because they're so emotionally dead. They depend on a prescriptive medication in order to be able to cope with being alive at all. This is a genocide. It is a multifaceted international genocide to depopulate. On the record, these people have talked about it for generations. They see us as cattle. If you want to look at it the Zionist perspective, that's basically what Goyim means. Honey, I'm sorry. I'm the one who's saying here, y'all just like ain't really listening because you want to keep sipping lattes thinking it's a much happier position, but it's not. You getting fucked. And if you don't wake up, it falls on your kids. So do forgive me if I'm more than a little bit pissed. Much love to all y'all. Sorry I wasn't able to hang out with you, but being around people who don't understand reality, who still think Santa Claus is real, no. World isn't that simple. It's a lot more brutal. And it goes along the lines of Margaret Sanger, who had founded Planned Parenthood not to provide health care for women, but because it was an effective way to murder more African American children. Why? Her mantra was, kill them with kindness. Any environment that you gravitate towards right now that is excessively kind to you is a kill mechanism hidden behind an emotional shield. That's how war works now. Hope you're doing well. Much love to you. Show this to Larry. I'm not really interested in your uninformed opinions. I expect you to inform yourselves, and I'm pretty fucking good at that. Much love. Bye.
Next, we have this clip from Sam Tripoli and Kurt Metzger.
What's his name? The Rothschild that Theodore Herzl went to and really caught his ear with it.
I'm
And he
sure
was like,
some Baron von Rothschild, something like that.
Yeah, Lizard Dick von. Anyway.
Lizard Dick von Braun.
Baron Edmund
Pindar von Dragon Penis.
What's his name?
Edmund de Rothschild.
Baron, you said, though?
Baron, correct.
I
yes.
knew. I knew.
Wait, Edmund? Who's the one that dated Anne Rand?
It says Theodore Herzl and the Rothschild family, specifically Baron Edmund de Rothschild,
Oh,
had
okay,
a
right,
complex,
okay.
initially strained relationship as Herzl saw political, blah, blah, blah.
So all those come out of Lithuania and Poland and shit. Edmund Rothschild's like, why would I give it? Everybody was going to America. They weren't going to Jerusalem, okay? But whack job occultists need you in Jerusalem for some reason. And also, to sell it, they go, and Herzl I don't think is an occultist at all, by the way. I think he was kind of like pretty sincere guy, actually. But he goes, all these Lithuanian poor are going to show up here in England. And then, because Rothschild's like, I have it great here. You know, I'm a baron and all that shit. Like, why would I want to even get involved? Well, so it might come, this might hit you eventually. So you want to get these poor ones somewhere that's useful to you. Like, that's how he sold it. And it was. And that's why that's why your Liberty and Levins don't live in Israel. Only stupid chump Christian whose pastors are being paid Hasbara money go to fucking Israel like that. Everybody else is, there's that one comic here, I'm watching Voss talk to her because Voss is like he knows nothing. And I'm watching the overly about Israel. And she's like, I can see on her, she's like, I live here for a reason, dude. Like,
100%.
I'm from there. It's not what you think.
I'm probably going to lose you on this, Kurt. But whatever the number of the Holocaust is, I'm not here debating any of that at all. But I think that they basically got all the anti-Zionist.
I know for a fact they did. They did for a fact.
I knew it, dude.
No, dude, it's the same principle with Netanyahu telling the liberals. That's why these psychopath Chabad, Lurianic types.
Yeah,
they
so
love
crazy,
a good story about how these ones were so liberal and actually, ironically, didn't want to genocide the Arabs. And look what these bad Arabs did to the nice. So you see who it serves?
Yeah.
The psychopath ones. So if you say some Israeli with like raver taste, and let's face it, it's not going to be great taste, but you're probably more liberal than the average Ben Gvir. And then they check with the IDF if it's okay to have their rave next to the concentration camp that day. And they say, yeah, definitely go do that. That's what happened.
No, they moved it. They moved it the day of. They're like, oh, we're going to move it over here even closer.
I forgot. You're right.
Dude, I go to
so
music
that's
festivals.
two groups.
Do you know how hard it is to move a music festival from one day to another? There's like stages. It's a whole fucking.
Not if you got the IDF and American money behind it. But anyway, they as you remember,
it looked like a shitty rave, to be honest with you. It just looked like patio furniture.
Especially after the
How long does it take to figure out the hang gliders aren't part of the rave?
This is awesome.
It's funny. If I was there, I'd be like, oh shit, look at these fucking.
Yeah, because you'd be on Molly and shit.
That was
You'd be
the point.
like,
we covered on Jimmy from the out of the gate, and right out of the gate it was fishy because you saw all these people complaining, and especially IDF people who were like, "How the that even possibly happen?"
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And as you know, Netanyahu was supposed to go to court like October 8th.
Over and over again, dude. Over and over again. They just keep canceling his
Such
testimony.
a coincidence, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And so there's still people out there that are like, release the hostages. Why did you kill the baby? There's no hostages. And then
by the way, the hostages, Israel killed themselves. First, some came back, but their stories, obviously, Hamas didn't want to harm the hostages. How would that help them? They're trying not to all be killed if those Abraham Accords go through. So Israel knows that, and they would say it as much. They go, that's why they have a Hannibal. Hey, that's why we have the Hannibal directive.
Mass Hannibal directive, yes.
And so that's how all the cars blew up and all those fake. That's all fake. You, if you don't like hearing it, I'm just telling you what reality is, dipshit. Hang gliders and guns, you can't blow up cars with. I don't know. I don't care how much Grand Theft Auto you played. Those soldiers were ordered to do that. make sure they can't take hostages because, and historically, Israel doesn't want to deal with hostages. And think of how crazy that is, that you would sacrifice your own citizens for the PR of the state. Like, why would you be loyal to a country like that? And why would you think it has anything to do with God? Especially if you're I don't understand Christians that think.
It's crazy.
No, that's the craziest shit. As they're blowing up old churches, they're like, but we got to support the chosen people. You're like,
no, God don't even like America. You think he likes that shit?
Yeah, 100%. And the reason the reason they kill everybody is because it gets them more sympathy from their own citizens who are so brainwashed they can't even go, who gains from this? Who gains from what happened?
Okay, so the end of the world cult, which your Bill Maher's would have you believe it's all American evangelicals are mostly the end of the world create. No, it turns out that the Chabad have a whole thing that's even crazier.
Right.
It turns out that you couldn't do it if it was just remember how they try to shift the blame onto the dumb fat ass Christians? So anybody who's like into the red heifer, you are such a warlock. Like, why would you ever? The red heifer. I remember hearing about that as a kid.
I've had a couple red heifers.
Me too. Hey. Richie Cunningham's daughter. What's her?
Oh boy.
From who's the redhead director?
Oh,
Ron Howard.
Ron Howard. Yeah,
what's his daughter's name?
But she's not a red heifer. She's just hot.
What is it? Bryce.
She's just a big
Howard.
bitch.
Bryce.
Yeah,
Dallas
she's
Howard.
a big. I mean, I'm not against her, but I mean,
I'm pro.
Red heifer.
I'm pro Amazon.
I wouldn't call her name.
I'm just saying she's a big bitch.
She's a big bitch.
No problem. Hey,
she's
it's fine with
substantial.
me.
Yeah,
she's substantial.
She exists a lot. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, I'm substantial. So, oh shit, I knocked this over.
Thank you.
Hey.
No, but you're told it's like, and I'm not going to say names, Kurt, because you see them too. Comics we love, we just love them, and they're all just like, oh, it's the J hate everywhere, J hate. Everywhere there's a J, and it's like, well, I'm not saying that at all. But are you saying there's
I have no J hate. I only say
none.
Zionist.
I live with
I
a
say
J.
Zionist, and I'm not even like mad because you're a Zionist. It's just at this point. You should have maybe looked into some shit beyond what your ironically, a lot of people's bubbies and Zadies, I'll bet, were not approving of this because I know Norman Finkelstein, his parents, were like Auschwitz, and they weren't like, they hated Germans. They really hated Germans. He said they weren't like, go kill all them kids in Gaza. That's not a thing that they thought was cool. You would think if you just been through that, you wouldn't want to inflict it, but it's much like being molested. Some people get mad at that, and some people get the hunger, right?
That's why I call it the hunger. Oh, you got that hunger.
You got the
They called the 6 million number, just that was called out by the guy Wolfson that took over after Herzl. I can't remember. You can look it up. You can find the speech, but the 6 million number was designated. Why is it called the Holocaust, dude? That's a Greek word. Yeah, the bird offering. So you're looking at one of the greatest trauma-based mind control rituals ever done by the oligarchs and the Anglo Harry Potter powers that be. And that trauma of that, and there's a guy, Justin Sledge, he's a professor of he's a pretty popular channel of occult shit. And it's real good if you want just basic, academic looking at these old writings without any kind of shit, because it's very hard to get the real story with this kind of stuff. But he has a very good video about the golem, a golem that Frankenstein.
Yeah.
It's made out of clay and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if I took it this way, but from what he was saying, it was like Israel's a golem that's powered by hate and revenge. And that's why anti-Semitism is a kind of fuel source for it, unfortunately.
No, 100%. When they get mad, I'm like, dude, you want everyone to talk shit.
Theodore Herzl said when anti-Semitism spreads, I grow. Because again, people weren't trying to go to Jerusalem; they were trying to go to America.
Yes, 100%.
But America, even dude, I don't think something changed. I think Matt Ehret has a better opinion of the founding fathers than I do, because I just look at them as Luciferian human traffickers. Okay, and now I realize, and I have a very bad, my viewpoint of famous sayings is real cynical now in a way it wasn't before. So, for example, Ben Franklin saying those who would trade a little freedom for a little security and peace deserve neither. A famous saying, which is, let me tell you that fat pedo occultist is really saying. If you give up your freedoms willingly, which we have, you deserve what comes to you. That's why it's called the American experiment. It was always meant as a mere stepping stone to the one world government. America is what? All the countries of the world, right? You melting pot. Like ye olde Atlantis, right? And that's why when you see CIA John Pompeo go like the glory of the American experiment, and I would say on Jimmy Show, I'm like, why does he keep saying experiment? Are we not a country? Like, is this like maybe we're a country? Yeah, no, that is what it always was. That's what it always was.
Yeah. Now, we take a look at this clip from Cognitive Dissidents.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cognitive Dissidents. I am Parallel Mike of Parallel Systems.
I'm Monica of The Monica Perez Show.
And this is Robert from geopoliticsandempire.com.
Well, it's great to see you both again. It's been 3 weeks, I think, since our last episode. The Middle East conflict with Iran is continuing, as we all said it would. And, you know, I think at this point, we can safely say that the good outcome for this is not happening. That train has left the station, it's gone. So now it's a case of it's either going to be bad or really bad. And so I think when we called it it's about a month or so back now, actually, maybe 6 to 8 weeks back.
It's a few months now, we can say.
Yeah.
Well, we actually, if you go back to our first episode of 2025, I think it was, we called that Iran was going to be the conflict, and it was going to be the one that takes us to the next stage of the reset. So I have noticed recently a lot of people calling this the next COVID. We did that too. We was one of the first group of people to say that. So I think we've been pretty much on the money, not to give ourselves too much kudos, but we did a good job on that. And so I think maybe in tonight's conversation, we'll just discuss a little bit about what's happening and where we think it goes next. The first thing that I would say is I think we're getting very close to some kind of financial event. And the reason I think that is because if we go back to COVID, we had the virus, the virus didn't appear, but we had the narrative of a virus. And very early on in that, we had a financial event that was used as the pretext to print the trillions of dollars that they needed to kick the can down the road. Now, this time, we know they need to kick the can, but we've had all the events, but not the financial element. That hasn't actually happened yet. And then just this week, I was noticing we've got bond yields spiking out again. And a lot of people don't really look at bonds. They look at the stock market and say, well, if the stock market's up, it means everything's fine. That's not the case. Firstly, the real economy in the US has been shedding jobs since 2025 in all of the key sectors besides healthcare, and obviously it's death care, and private education. But outside of that, manufacturing, industrials, technologies, all of them are down in terms of jobs numbers. And then we've also got the bond market, which of course is the base layer of the financial system. So when you see the bond yields rising fast, it's actually in a very real way ripping apart large chunks of the financial system, like commercial banks, their bond portfolios, which is their collateral, collapses in value. So lots of unrealized losses. And then you've got the stock market, which is just debt fueled. So if you don't have ever increasing amounts of debt being added to the system, that will eventually start to unravel. So I'm personally looking out for that right now, but I'd love to get your two guys' take just on where we are with this narrative and what you think comes next. So I'll leave that open for anyone to jump in.
Yeah, maybe we could get your further thoughts. Something else that I think we could add in there was the WHO wrapped up exercise Polaris 2. 2-day high-level simulation exercise based around an outbreak of a fictional new bacterium spreading across the world. And I believe, was it a Princess cruise ship with round 1 of COVID, remember? That had been
Yes,
isolated.
it was, yeah.
Now there's a new cruise ship that's isolated, hantavirus, I think it's called. And really, can we seriously get better psyops? But
I think the hantavirus does whatever that is. I know somebody who died on a cruise ship last year, and I was like, that's what they get. It's like a high fever and kidney failure. I'm not saying it's not a psyop or it's not on purpose or whatever, but it's one of those things. I don't know what it even is really, but it's definitely something that happens on ships. However, it always happens on ships. Nobody talked about it last year when this happened to somebody I know. So that's the part of what I think it's what they pull on. It's the threads they pull. I know, is it too controversial for me to say like virus and sickness in the same word? They could have invented viruses to make sicknesses. I don't know.
I don't take any of it serious hantavirus, bacterium, whatever.
I'm not worried about it, but
for these,
I've actually got a little clip, if you don't mind me sharing it, of a Sky News Media publication where it shows you an interview with a guy who's actually on this supposed ship or has a supposed outbreak. And I just want you to listen to it to see if you think it's a credible actor.
And then, okay, just real quick, I just wanted to mention, though, to what you're saying about we're at the tipping point, at the cliff's edge. And I feel like what they're doing with the WHO exercise and everything, they're keeping the fire warm for these different options. And then they have a way to gauge our emotions. Like DARPA Polymarket is one of those, the latest tools in their arsenal. But they're gauging, like, how are we going to react to another quote pandemic, then the alien psyops, they're preparing war. So I feel like they're keeping these options. So when the time comes for the financial collapse, they're like, okay, we're gonna go with this one, right? So.
Well, that's the strongest position on the chessboard, is if you give yourself as many options as you can possibly make, because ultimately there is a part of it which is unknowable. We are not robots. We are human beings. And as we've been seeing, the longer they keep these theatrics going on, the more people check out. So I was interested with the response of the recent Trump assassination attempt at the White House gala, where most people, even MAGA people, were saying, this is BS. We don't believe it. And then you see the creepy little Trump watching from the stage corner. What's going on? So, yeah, I think that's happening. And so they need to give themselves lots of options, because they know you're only going to capture ever decreasing amounts of people in each narrative, particularly as you push it further. So maybe that's why the virus stuff's coming back on, because there are still some people out there who believe that. So anyways, I just
to add on that, though, even I noticed that immediately across the spectrum, left and right and beyond, on X and elsewhere, with this third stage assassination attempt, no one's buying it across the political spectrum. Even Wired magazine, I shared that in my weekly analysis, was forced to do damage controls themselves, saying left wing, right wing, nobody believes it. And on the vaccine stuff, I just want to add, I finished watching this week, finally. It was only 6 episodes. Netflix's 2023 Korean dystopian film Black Knight, where it's just, well, it was interesting. Spoiler alert for Black Knight. I'm going to spoiler alert, but it's where, something happens, everyone lives in like a desert wasteland, and they create these 15-minute cities for everyone to live in. And it's uncovered that, and they're trying to kill people through vaccinations. Like literally the vaccines, the government's vaccines literally are killing people. And then they discover that you can actually breathe. Like the sun is coming out, and then they were spraying the 15-minute zones with poison as the pretext for this QR code system where everyone receives the oxygen, when in fact they didn't really need it. And I feel like, why do they tell us so clearly in the fictional scenarios this, and then in reality they're actually doing it, and nobody accepts the reality of it? It's some crazy psychological twist. Anyways, I thought, that was interesting.
I have lots of responses.
Sorry,
to
Monica,
that.
jump in.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, I think there's a lot of similarities to what happened with COVID and what's happened with the second Trump presidency. And if we accept that the second Trump presidency that we've just had was the next stage of the reset and COVID was the first stage beginning in 2020, you saw with COVID that as it went on, like I said, there was decreasing amounts of bang for the buck. So they had to keep trying to fan the flames harder and harder. But by the time you got 2 years in, the majority of people had figured out, listen, there's something not right here, and we're going to go back to our normal lives. And I think with the Trump assassination attempts, it's very similar to the COVID variants, that the first few COVID variants, people were panicked and scared of. By the time you got to Omicron B or whatever the hell it was, people were like, this is nonsense. Well, I think that was the recent Trump assassination attempt. It was the Omicron B variant of the Trump assassination. Nobody bought it. Everyone was like, listen, I'm checking out of this. And I saw some videos on X of Trump at baseball games, at UFC contests, and it's just being booed. It's just being booed out of the place. So again, are we going to see some switch out with Trump at some point? Monica, you've said at some point maybe they do actually do
That's what I think. It's like it would be interesting at this point, especially after they've made you totally inured to the assassination stuff, to actually have a real one and give you another black mass trauma event and get Vance in there for a much more interesting battle between, so you have like Vance and Erica Kirk versus Newsom and AOC, a little face off there. It doesn't matter who wins. I would think it's the Newsom time to shine, but when they go back to Democrat, you're going to have like 12 years of Democrat. That's how they do it. They get the Republicans to create all the problems and start all the wars, and then the Democrats like maturely have to see it through. But
I'm just going to share this. This is a little bit, hopefully, that you see it the way I see it. This is not a serious, legitimate video, but this is what they're telling us about this virus.
This passenger says he's on board the ship.
What's happening right now is very real for all of us here. We're not just a story. We're not just headlines. We're people. All we want right now is to feel safe, to have clarity, and to get home.
It sounded like he was reading from a script because his eyes were,
in fake crying. He may have been playing into a stereotyping trope because he was being
I
such
actually
a
checked out.
wuss.
I actually did some hand research on that guy. He does have an Instagram account, and he supposedly travels the world and was on the ship. But I can't take that seriously.
But
I can't take the story seriously, but I certainly can't take
Well,
the...
now, obviously, that's a huge psyop. And I do wonder sometimes if it's like a phishing email where they deliberately make the grammar super bad so that only incredibly dumb people will pull on that thread. You know that about phishing, right? Phishing's super obvious because they don't want to waste their time with people who are going to figure it out 5 minutes in. They want people who are so dumb that they cannot figure it out, even when it's really obvious. So, yeah.
Yeah,
You're describing a lot of people.
That's what phishing is. That's what that is. So, like, they want to separate us into conspiranoids, tainted, other, and that's how someone like Trump gets elected, and then everyone believes in him, or Tucker Carlson, and then the majority who believe that guy just because he's on TV or whatever, they're still the majority.
I'm thinking of that just brought memories back of the narco Metro day we had a few months back,
Yes.
where I drove through half a dozen like narco blockades, and we were coming back. We were worrying for our lives in the sense of, will we get our car pulled over and told to get out of the car and watch it burned, which actually wouldn't have been bad because the insurance would have given us the car. But I mean, if I were in that ship, I'd be like, this is crazy. I'm investigating. This is all fake, But I wouldn't have I wouldn't have been crying. I'm like, when I was in the narco blockades, I'm like, this is wild. They're like, we're actually living Mad Max. I'm not crying,
No, I would not be crying. I came back and fought the fire. I would not be crying.
Hantavirus can't be spread by humans. It's spread by contaminated food or something. So you basically fast, right? That's all you have to do. Go about your day, get off the ship, and you're fasting until you get off. So the idea that this guy's somehow, terrified, it was clearly, I think, a setup.
That was a ridiculous video. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of us can tell now. Do we go back to Iran, and then I want to get your thoughts on?
I have a few things that from the stuff that you're saying. Should I do that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you jump in, Monica. Tell us what you've got.
So when you were talking about bond yields going up, my thought was that is a reflection of like a lack of demand. You have to really pay because, for many reasons, but our U.S. debt has, by any measure, exceeded 100% of GDP. This was like a milestone it reached this week. And that's something that's going to should make your 30-year, because you're talking about really high rates on a 30-year. Not historically the highest, but for a while. Another thing that happened, which I think is related to rising rates, and I had predicted, actually tweeted about it 5 years ago during COVID. I said all these homeownership was on the decline. First-time homeownership was on the decline. And all of a sudden it started to spike. And I said, I really hope these people aren't getting lured into ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, because what happens then in a like zero rate environment is 5 years down the road, everybody loses their houses. So you think this is pushing back on BlackRock's taking over all of the suburban single-family housing. It isn't. It's a setup for that, and that is happening. Foreclosures are up 26% from last year. Also, it folded in with the poly market thing. That's interesting that you were saying the poly market is a way to gauge which is the best PSYOP to use, what demographic, because I think these different threads, these different PSYOPs are set up, like old people will respond to that hantavirus thing because it's on cruises and they're old. They have multiple parallel PSYOPs depending on the demographic, and they can really drill into who it's going to work on with that poly market, which is why I noticed and actually had in my notes before you even mentioned it that they are talking about insider trading corrupting the poly markets. And my answer always to that stuff is let it happen. Let it be absolutely riddled with insider trading, because then no one will touch it with a 10-foot pole. When they regulate stuff like that to give it the illusion or even the reality of honesty, it's in order to support it as an industry. So there are regulators who want the poly market. You're talking, that's the betting stuff, right?
Right. And I was going to say the shout out to Zara of Collapse Life. They published a great article kind of to what you're saying, that it's actually sort of been the democratization of the market and insider trading, allowing us plebes now to place bets on some of this stuff. And I think some of us conspiranoids might actually have some decent success were we to try our hand at
oh my gosh,
market.
when I think about Palantir, it opened at 15, and I was like, 15, it's going to run the world. Why would it be at 15? And now it is. Now even though it tanked, it's still almost 10 times that.
Now we take a look at this episode of New World Next Week.
Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I am James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. The public does not believe that you can lead this change, and nor do I. We have got that story, plus the worldwide wiretap once more and more. But first, problem. CDC coordinates with World Health Organization amid hantavirus scare, the Center for Disease Creation, coordinating with the World Health Organization to help global authorities contain a hantavirus outbreak aboard a cruise ship, which you first heard about here last week on New World Next Week, signaling collaboration from the U.S. with international authorities despite changes to its global public health strategy that experts say make the country more vulnerable to disease. The U.S. formally withdrew from the World Health Organization earlier this year following an executive order by DJ Trump signed in his first 100 days, and also massive cuts to the CDC. But since reports surfaced earlier this month of a hantavirus outbreak aboard the MV Hondius, a cruise ship operated by the Netherlands-based Oceanwide Expeditions, scientists trust the scientists that have set off a global rapid effort to uncover how the strain emerged. WHO officials said U.S. health experts are providing technical support and exchanging information as authorities work to stop the spread of this rare form of hantavirus that has so far killed 3 people and infected 5 others. We should definitely shut down the world for 8 people. Things are going actually as it used to be, meaning sharing information from our side and also with getting information from the U.S. side, whose Director General Dr. Tedros somewhat confusingly said, so if it's the same, why does it matter if the U.S. is in or out? It's like it doesn't even matter, James. Trump had issued an executive order after taking office, pledging to leave the World Health Organization after criticizing its mishandling of the COVID scamdemic and ties to China, where Trump is literally at this moment with his coterie of CEOs. The U.S. departure upended the work between the nation's health officials and collaborators across the globe. Yeah, that'll get you war crimes charges later, and raised concerns over the U.S.'s involvement in, I guess, all of this. Giggly mooglers. World Health Organization heads Anais Lagan, technical lead for viral hemorrhagic fevers at the World Health Organization, told repeaters she's collaborating with her counterpart at the CDC on a hantavirus outbreak, and they interact almost every single day. Reaction. World Health Organization chief sure hopes U.S. and Argentina will rejoin amid hantavirus outbreak. The aforementioned Dr. Tedros expressed hope that the ongoing hantavirus will convince the United States and Argentina to reverse their departures from the agency. Tedros stressed that pathogens do not heed political divisions, national borders, or justifications for disengagement. They do, however, heed paper masks and 6 feet, and insisted that solidarity remains the strongest defense against infectious threats. He underscored that any uncovered space in the global health architecture ultimately benefits the the virus. And of course, here comes the solution. The 79th World Health Assembly running May 18th through the 23rd. So all those super spreaders are congregating together in person via carbon-spewing jets to warn me about some communicable diseases. Do I have that straight, James?
Yeah, I think so. So surely they're going to lead by example, right? Surely they're not going to stay at their 4-star hotels and, fly in by private jet. No, they're going to sit there in their grovel hovels and communicate via Zoom, right? Oh, something tells me that will not be on the cards. But what will be on the cards for the World Health Assembly coming up conveniently just at the exact time that the world is freaking out with this new hantavirus scare? Well, we can get more information on it from our good friends at Chatham House. That's right, the mothership/progenitor organization of the CFR conspirators there in the U.S. In England, they're talking about global health reform cannot wait for a new world order. Middle powers must act now. And they take the interesting cue for this geopolitical / biosecurity think piece from arch crony Mark Carney there in Canada with his now famous World Economic Forum speech, and the idea of middle powers in this emerging multipolar world order and the variable geometry of not being able to convene on issues by themselves. So they have to corral support for issues such as pandemic preparedness, antimicrobial resistance, digital health governance, and climate health linkages, which each require a different coalition moving at different speeds. And this is going to be how the new multipolar world order is going to act, et cetera, et cetera. So I will throw that link in for that propaganda for people who are interested in exploring it, because I think it tells us something about the way they are trying to move the needle, not only on the biosecurity agenda, but towards multipolar world governance generally. And then we got this from Center for Global Development. 3 issues to watch at WHA 79. That's the World Health Assembly. Number 79. Number 1, WHO financing is deteriorating. Oh no, they're losing money for their scam. Number 2, WHO prioritization is failing because their deeds do not match their words. I'm shocked to find gambling going on in this establishment. And number 3, WHO leadership of the global health architecture has been set up to fail. Where have we heard those words before? Oh, yeah, 9/11 Commission. Anyway, the idea is they need more power, and how are they going to grab it? And just in case anyone in our audience, I can't imagine, but just in case there is any normie who has stumbled upon this video who doesn't understand it yet, this is a PSYOP from top to bottom. Case in point number 1, this op-ed from The Hill, specifically Mark Siegel, who writes, "Hantavirus made me reconsider the World Health Organization. Trump should too." The World Health Assembly, the main decision-making body of the World Health Organization, is meeting this year in Geneva starting next Monday. This meeting may represent the last chance for the U.S. to reverse course and remain a member of the WHO. The organization's superb handling of the ongoing hantavirus outbreak is the main reason I believe the U.S. should stay, says this establishment stooge. Meanwhile, in reality, I will point people to a very good op-ed on Brownstone Institute from David Bell. He writes, "Hantavirus, the WHO, and the conflicts in weighing mortality." And he starts by noting that yesterday, almost 2,000 people, mostly young children, died of malaria because they could not access effective and relatively cheap treatment quickly enough. About 4,000 people died of tuberculosis, including many young adults, leaving orphans. This happens every day. Progress in reducing these numbers is stalling, as partly due to the continuing economic damage from the COVID-19 response. But in contrast, what is everyone freaking out about? In the past 2 weeks, 3 tourists unfortunately died among about 150 passengers and crew on a cruise ship off the coast of the African continent where most of those malaria and TB deaths occurred. And major freak out, and now everyone in the world has to be concerned about this hantavirus, which I personally give you a hand-delivered guarantee you are not going to die of hantavirus. But, my God, we all have to dedicate our whole lives and existences to praying the WHO will be able to save us from this scourge. It is 100% that is something that is being beamed into your mind by the media. You wouldn't even know that hantavirus existed unless you were one of those 30 Americans or so who die of hantavirus every year, but you don't hear about them because it's not part of the news cycle that's being generated to gin up the WHA 79 hype. So keep that in mind when they are shoving a story like this in front of your face, even though it does not and will not affect your life in any way, shape, or form. It is part of an agenda.
I would argue it could affect our lives because of the idiocy that surrounds all of this. And James, that's my biggest disappointment over the last decade or so. I pretty much come to terms with being okay with people have different beliefs. They want to vote for this. They want to vote for that. I think we can still kind of work together while I'll be independent 9/11 truth or media market. Then Trump and COVID happened. I think everybody's crazy and dangerous. That's why I live out in the boonies now. They are not to be trusted. Sorry. I don't know if you got anybody in the cruise business, James, but we have talked in the past before scary events like this happen. People die on these cruises. It's not a rarity. So if you're on a cruise and they suddenly say, ice cream, everybody, that means they got a corpse in the cooler. Fact. You can look that up. They will put dead bodies in the coolers of these ships when they can't come to shore just yet. So get a little gnar on this New World Next Week, episode 630. Yeah, they want to move the needle into all of us. And this could be, James, this could be the kind of thing to, get us kicked off YouTube again. Watch. They'll say this World Cup needs to stop. Halt it. All of it. Just stop it. But how about a double shot of quitters? Holy moly, Marty McCary resigns as FDA commissioner after internal tensions. James, I have said, I didn't vote for Trump. I don't like Trump. I enjoy how quickly people get fired. Growing up, watching the news, parents always had the news on. Of course, it makes sense that I've always been into the news. I've never seen people basically get bounced out of administration positions because they're not doing their job, or at least to the way that DJ Trump wants them to. Marty McCary resigned as commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration yesterday, stepping aside amid a swirl of reports that his tenure was coming to an end over internal policy disagreements, like, executive orders for glyphosate and also totally being healthy. His departure follows reports of conflict and tension over the FDA's agenda. On May 6th, the FDA approved some flavored e-cigarettes from the vaping company Glass Incorporated and touted its safety restrictions to limit use by young people, of course. According to the Wall Street Journal, the move came only after Mr. Trump pressured McCary to approve the fruit-flavored vapes, which he had been refusing to do so. One source familiar with the matter told the Paramount Sinai CBS News that McCary is leaving over the e-cig dispute, adding that the commissioner didn't want to approve the flavored varieties, but had been forced by other members of the administration. CBS News and other outlets had reported in recent days that Trump had signed off on a plan to fire him. McCary did not appear with the gang in the Oval Office Monday alongside the P-Resident and other top public health officials for an event on, what are we talking about? Oh, maternal health. Speaking to repeaters on the south lawn of the White House, future site of UFC America 250, President said he did not want to discuss the circumstances of McCary's departure, but called him a great guy and a friend of mine. And by the time you are watching this guy would probably be well done as well. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer rejects mounting calls to resign even from within his own party. Remember, the left will always just stab you in the front. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer insisted that he will get on with governing, rejecting calls from within his own party to step aside, which have been intensified by multiple resignations from his cabinet. In the wake of disastrous results in local elections last week, a fifth of all members of the UK Parliament from Starmer's own Labour Party have now called on him to step down, and 4 members of his cabinet resigned in an effort to force him to quit. I joke, they're Gen Z kids and they didn't really want to go to work anyway. But honestly, James, I don't think Starmer has enough knees. It's kind of like Kanye. He doesn't have enough knees to bend to the Zionists. Starmer doesn't have enough knees to bend to the woke Marxist mobs. And also, by the way, they did just vote in the new non-federal, no reserves head, Kevin Warsh, clinches Senate approval to be the Federal Reserve's next chair as inflation intensifies. James, they are shuffling the deck chairs on this Titanic, or shuffling the birdcage liner and the cage.
You took the words out of my mouth. That was exactly what I was going to say. You know me. I'm going to say shadows on the cave wall and all of that. But then I saw this startling headline from CNBC that set me straight. Jamie Dimon warns JP Morgan may rethink new London office if very smart Starmer is ousted as UK PM. And they go on to report JP Morgan Chase may reconsider a planned multi-billion-dollar office tower in London if UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is ousted, talking about their plans to build a new 3 million square foot tower in London's Canary Wharf Financial District to house up to 12,000 employees and serve as its UK headquarters. But then, of course, it goes on to reveal that asked on Tuesday if the political instability gripping Britain changed his view on the mega project in London, Dimon responded that if a new government was hostile to the banks, then yes. So the actual headline should be something like, hypothetical posed to Jamie Dimon, and he responded with a further hypothetical in which he would consider maybe scrapping some plan, which isn't quite the clickbait that CNBC wants. So they decided to, Jamie Dimon warns. We need the very smart Starmer in charge, said no one ever, except apparently Jamie Dimon. Okay, thank you. But just to further underline and reinforce the fact that this is all deck chairs on the Titanic, it does not matter at all to the actual agenda at play. Let's talk about the real power and the real power behind the throne. But obviously, they use the throne as their puppet mouthpiece, and thus we get this headline from Biometric Update. The King's speech signals that digital ID in the UK is a go again. The King hath spoken. His ministers will, quote, proceed with the introduction of digital ID that will modernize how citizens interact with public services, end quote. There you go. There's the agenda. Doesn't matter if Starmer or whoever else is in that seat. This is where they are taking you. And what will you, dear loyal subjects of the British Crown, do about it? Question mark.
It's interesting. Yeah, bankster threats. I won't come build my opulent tower if you don't play nice with my collaborators. James, honestly, I kind of buy the conspiracy theory that all the things we see in the U.S. are essentially moves to put us into bankruptcy. We are going into receivership. Hell, maybe that's why Trump is over in China right now, signing the rest of the states off. Yeah, because we're all in debt. Ward Churchill would call this tower, of course, full of little Eichmanns. Our third and final story on this New World Next Week, episode 630, more solutions. AI Safety Institute debuts with big name backers, censorship agenda from the fantastic folks at reclaimthenet.org, and everything we talk about always linked up in your show notes. Common Sense Media's Youth AI Safety Institute arrived at the Danish Parliament this week. So we've got the Danish Parliament and the Netherlands, James. And the guest list is stacked with people who think you can't be trusted to speak freely online. And of course, we're proving them right every moment here. So we've got, of course, Hillary Karen. We've got Ursula von der Karen. We've got former Biden Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, Ofcom Chief Melanie Karen, and the head of an organization that wants to break end-to-end encryption, all gathering at Christiansborg Palace in Copenhagen to announce what they'd like to do next about AI and children. They mean next to AI and children. The Youth AI Safety Institute, launched by Common Sense Media way back on May 5th, says it will complement efforts by regulators and policymakers to translate frameworks such as the EU AI Act, the Digital Services Act, the UK Online Safety Act into practical protections for child-safe AI. See, and again, that's always you just have to use the good AI. Those three censorship laws represent the most aggressive government-directed speech suppression regimes currently operating in the Western world, and the Institute isn't questioning a bit of it. In fact, it wants to help implement them and help push them further. The summit, titled Keeping Our Children and Families Safe in the AI Era, is co-hosted by Common Sense Media, Save the Children Denmark, Margaret Vestager, who spent years as the European Commission's executive vice president, building the regulatory architecture that now lets EU officials order platforms to delete content that they don't like. More than 200 policymakers, tech executives, and civil society figures are expected, and I hope, again, they all fly a bunch of private jets and carbon, all that stuff. King Frederick X of Denmark is giving the opening address. It's called No Kings, except for this. The Duchess of Edinburgh will attend. Danish, tasty, Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen is also on the bill, and so is Pinterest CEO Bill Reddy, whose company helped pay for the Institute's creation. You might have heard me praise the fact that places like Etsy, Tumblr, Pinterest never sold out to the giant tech fangsters, but now it doesn't look like they have to. Pinterest, no! And in related news, James, the FSU shooting lawsuit that could turn ChatGPT into a surveillance tool. What is it now? It's like saying, I might lose some faith in government. James, it's getting worse and worse with this whole internet trash.
Isn't it, though? And in fact, it almost seems like such an obvious pattern that there should be a name for it. We see these wonderful services introduced, and they do things that, hey, that's cool, that's convenient, it's free, it's awesome, and it gradually gets worse and worse and more surveilled and more buggy and more ad-prone and all of that until it's almost unusable, and you hate and resent the fact that it is now wedded into your life. Oh, there is a name for that. It is enshittification. That term was coined by Cory Doctorow a couple of years ago. It's taken off in the meantime, and my audience should know about it because, of course, I did that recent Solutions Watch on 10 tips for de-enshittifying the internet. So if you haven't seen that yet, people should check that out. But the question really is, if you try to de-enshittify AI, will there be anything left? Because that all it is at base. But anyway, yes, of course, this is the part where they start revealing to you what the AI chatbots and all of these super convenient tools that they've just been giving you because they love you so much are really about. Total surveillance, total enslavement, and of course, ultimately total psychosis. And if people are interested in the AI psychosis and how it's affecting people like Richard Dawkins and where it's going from here, they can check out an editorial that I'm writing in my newsletter this weekend on the Claude delusion. But I'll just leave it there for now. Anyway, yes, no surprise at all. And anyone who is using any of these AI as their personal confidant should know everything you say is being surveilled.
We've helped build the panopticon. I posed the question this morning on the air. I don't know how we can complain about data centers. You ain't listening to Media Monarchy on a paper envelope. We're all using this garbage. And I think, as I've joked, like I was already swimming in the pool of Brave browser. They started to pour in the AI urine once I was already in there. I didn't see it and go, oh gosh, I want to jump into that. See, that's the frog boil. And when you try and crawl out, the crab will come and get you. Mixing our New World Order metaphors. James, I wonder, I speculate, is it possible that the next generation will be more hardcore than Generation X as far as having absolutely nothing to do with any of this? I believe I was reading some sci-fi the other day and it made some reference to, well, after the Luddite riots destroyed everything. So, of course, you better get your media that you're going to want to enjoy, of course, long into the years of the New World Order surveillance state. I do play the exclusive audio of these New World Next Week episodes before they are published on my radio stream at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. We have the post office boxes I have called the original private communications platform. I don't think Hoover's busting open too much of our mail. I don't think they really have too much time for that until they need a giant psyop like they need on their trains and other events. But for now, P.O. Box 189, El Rito, New Mexico, 87530. And we run NewWorldNextWeek.com, and the promise has come true. The Korber Report 2019 USBs are now available. And James, I got to ask you, what are some of the greatest hits on your latest 2019 USB?
I should have been prepared for that question.
I wrote it in the
but
thing.
I am not. Thank you. That is an excellent question, which I will answer next week. Stay tuned, everybody. Everything that you know and love from 2019 is on that USB. And yeah, I'm trying to think what was my documentary production in 2019, and I'm not remembering off the top of my head. But anyway, you know what, people, this is a good opportunity, a learning opportunity for people to explore the Corbett Report website in its 2019 archives and decide, you know what, there's so much stuff. I can't even decide what I would like from this. I want it all. And if you want it all, get the USB.
James, I think probably the first USB thumb drive that I got back in the day was given to me by one of the faculty at the college radio station because he knew I was working there all the time as my main passion. He gave me a USB drive that had 128 megs. You could put 2 albums, compact discs that you had ripped into digital MP3 files. You could probably put 2 of those albums. I was doing the music directing at the college radio station, so I could take stuff, rip it at the station, take it back to my home and be able to edit a little bit, take it back to this. I believe this is somewhere around 60 gigs, James. Each USB drive, of course, gets bigger and bigger and bigger because that's also just the way all of this goes. And we might have people that aren't able to use the Media Monarchy website. Again, everything escalates, but it's like our, cost of living. That never changes. Your computer hardware doesn't get better, but they keep forcing more and more through it, and it makes it more and more difficult to handle. Again, kind of bummed at this whole internet thing, but I appreciate that everybody's out there and can go get the USB 2019. James, I think that's it for New World Next Week, episode 630, my friends. I appreciate you.
I think that is it. Let me just put the plug in for the Media Monarchy t-shirts. If people are looking for some swag, they can, of course, go to newworldnextweek.com. And if they're looking for some information and news, of course, they can just stay tuned for New World Next Week. Each week, we will be here bringing you the news and information that matters. But that'll do it for this week, James. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, buddy. Take care.
Fuck this shit. I'm just gonna dance now. Fuck this shit. 'Cause we don't have a chance now. The whole world is fucking gone to hell. Makes me wanna fucking scream and yell. Fuck this shit. I'm just gonna dance now. Fuck this shit. 'Cause we don't have a chance now.
Guys, all rock. Thank you for being here and hanging out and being a part of the show. We do love the hell out of you, and we can't do the damn thing without you. It's a value for value gig here. If you're new here, you're kind of, just getting into the thing. This is how the show works. Every time you see not only AM Wake Up, but every other show that airs on the channels, all of that content comes to you for free. Nothing is ever going to be put behind a paywall. There's no subscribe to this to get that. You don't have to learn a secret handshake. We get $0 from advertisers. We get $0 from paid sponsors. That's why you don't hear 10 or 12 minutes of ad reads and shit at the beginning of the show or throughout it, because it doesn't exist in this environment. Instead, if you guys see value in what we're doing, you like the conversations, you like the guests, you like the jokes, whatever it is. If you see value in that, send it this way, and that's how we get to do the thing. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can participate. There's a couple of things that we definitely need to see from you guys. Most importantly, time, talent, and treasure. Time and talent, because it's just me doing all of the things 7 days a week in order to make sure that you guys see this stuff and I participate and hit the fucking like button. It's not going to break your wrist. I promise. I promise. On the talent end, if you make clips, please do that and get them out there. I don't care if 3 people are going to see it. If you tag us, we'll retweet it too, and then 3 more people are going to see it. The way that we're buried in the algorithm. But it helps. Every little bit helps. Exact same philosophy applies to the treasure part. Every little bit helps. If you're at all in a position to contribute to independent media, all of the direct donate links, including Bitcoin, are in the description. So if you have, 55 Bitcoin and you want to give the show one, it's going to get dispersed to at least 5 other content creators that day.
Kind of a fucking ass clown wouldn't have the heart and compassion to donate to baby Steve.
Now, let's take a look at some highlights from AM Wake Up from this week. Make sure to support and share their show to keep this great channel going. Share the show. Share the show. Share the show.
Share the fucking show.
You're Mark Normand.
I know racial stuff is touchy. I get it. I don't know if you guys saw this. I got dragged online recently for cultural appropriation on accident. I went to a Mexican restaurant for my birthday. My friend told the waiter it was my birthday. The waiter put a sombrero on me, took a photo. I posted it. I got 9,000 comments. Culture appropriation, colonizer, racist. I was like, that Mexican bastard tricked me. He put the thing on me. And look, I don't want to offend it, but isn't it a little strange? You can't wear a sombrero, but you can learn Spanish, eat Mexican food, have sex with Mexican women, have a Mexican child, but the hat, that's no bueno. How do you know what's okay and what isn't? That's all I'm asking. Just trying to figure it out. Like if a little white girl wears a kimono, she's a cunt. According to the internet. Plus, you can learn Japanese, eat sushi, play Pokemon, fly into Pearl Harbor. All fine. But the kimono is a kanono. And people go, well, look, man, you just can't wear stuff that belongs to other groups. Yeah, you can. What about drag queens? They're not women. We're all on board with that, right? Yeah, that's cool. Right? I don't know. Like, what about a lady with a strap on? I've got a dick. I'm not like, hey, that's our thing. Yeah? And again, I'm not an idiot. I'm not gonna wear blackface or a turban. I'm just trying to figure it out. Like I was using chopsticks the other day. My wife goes, "Oh, that's appropriation." I was like, "Well, where were you?" She goes, "I just did yoga." I'm like, well, that's Indian. And you work in IT. So what are we doing here? Dustin, we realize you can do it. You just can't put up a photo. That's where they get you. And I think that makes sense because I'm circumcised, but I'm not Jewish. But they got mad when I posted that picture.
Mark Normand.
Nice. I like it.
That's good shit. That's good shit. But yeah. The photographic evidence is really what pisses people off.
Yeah, well, and so many people wear green on St. Patrick's Day and eat pizza, and I guess I should get pissed, right? Yikes.
99% of Mexicans don't give a fuck if you appropriate their culture. They're happy to share it with you. It's like the fucking bougie college shit lib Mexicans that are ruining it for everybody else.
Right. Why do you think there's pizza places everywhere? Because some Italian woman sent it to work with her husband because it would stay good all day while he was slaving away building the city. He shared it with his coworkers, and somebody got the brilliant idea to make it into a business. Boom, pizza was everywhere, and now it's more popular here than it is in its country of origin. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is. This is the way things work here. Damn sombrero, come on.
Pizza's so popular, it's used as a code name for, banging children by the elite.
Allegedly, yeah. I've heard this. I'm not convinced exactly, but I've heard this. Yeah. What are you going to do? I would think they would use stuff like pudding pops, because, anyway. Especially the Jello pudding pop.
Let's see. We did a story a week or two ago, covered an article about how JP Morgan is planning on using smart dust, right? The hyperscaled nanoparticles that have been patented for about 20-something years or something like that for authentication purposes. The smart dust will completely evaluate and then log everything about you, your
voice, your average heart rate, everything. And that will keep your bank account safe and your bank information safe. Friend, have you heard about this shit? The JP Morgan thing?
I've heard about this in the past, but I didn't know we were. Yeah, I didn't know we were putting it into. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And Greg Reese, friend of the show. Shout out, Greg. Hope you're doing well. If you happen to be listening, stop in soon. Put together this regarding it. Let's give this a spin.
The Smart Dust project was funded by DARPA for military applications, specifically for rapid deployment of defense sensor networks onto the battlefield. Battlefield sensing is inherently about detecting people who don't know that they're being detected. The invisibility and undetectability are deliberate design priorities. This technology appeared in the public with U.S. patent 11354-666B1, Smart Dust Usage, which was filed on May 26, 2016, and granted on June 7, 2022. It is assigned to Wells Fargo Bank and describes a system for authenticating a user making a payment using Smart Dust. Smart Dust is technically known as MEMS, Micro-Electromechanical Systems, and is comprised of what are called motes. A mote is a single, self-contained microsensor node. Each mote measures 1 cubic millimeter or less and is roughly the size of a grain of sand. These motes are released as clouds with thousands of sensor nodes simultaneously sampling the target from multiple angles and positions. The biometric data being collected includes location, facial and body recognition, heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, breath rate, voice recognition, and fingerprint scanning. The system is designed to create a unique cryptographic signature for every individual based on biological and behavioral data, and is designed to operate without being noticed. The patent describes the motes as a cloud around the user, but UC Berkeley researchers have successfully implanted Smart Dust sensors into rats in order to monitor and control nerve and muscle activity. This technology requires no batteries and relies on ultrasound to draw power. Scientists claim that for humans, internal Smart Dust devices could monitor vital signs and could enable control over prosthetics and robotic limbs. In March 2022, the University of Washington's Dandelion breakthrough, partially funded by the U.S. Air Force, deployed tiny battery-free wireless sensors by wind, inspired by dandelion seeds. The senior author stated that our prototype suggests that you could use a drone to release thousands of these devices in a single drop. In 2024, a large blanket of fog affected the United Kingdom, the USA, and Canada. Over 20,000 travelers in the UK and 3.8 million drivers in the USA were impacted. People described it as a thick blanket of fog with a particle-like appearance, which had an odd chemical, electrical, or burning smell to it. And many people claimed to experience fever, coughing, sore throat, headache, and fatigue after exposure. The fog hit during the Christmas and New Year travel period, when millions were moving around for the holidays. A second patent, US 11748-578B1, Predictive Text System, was filed in November 2021 and granted on September 2023 to Wells Fargo Bank. This patent describes a system that uses neural networks and machine learning to analyze and predict your financial thoughts and intentions in real time as you type. Combined with the biometric data from Smart Dust, this creates a system that can monitor both what you're physically doing and what you're thinking about financially. A predictive behavioral surveillance system designed to be always on and continuously learning. This is the exact infrastructure needed for implementing a social credit system. The Smart Dust market was valued at $153.9 million in 2024 and is estimated to grow at a compound annual growth rate of over 14.3% from 2025 to 2034. Industrial use has increased significantly in 2023 and 2024, with integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms now allowing smart dust devices to analyze data locally and make autonomous decisions. This technology is currently moving from laboratories to public deployment, which has naturally caused concern. In the 1950s and 60s, the U.S. Army conducted open-air biological and chemical tests over American cities without public knowledge or consent. Greg Reese reporting.
Good job, Greg. As
Right.
always.
Yeah. Good job for sure. But again, in the alt media about 10 years ago, I wasn't the only one, but a bunch of us were trying to, warn people about these DARPA projects that were being developed then. And it's certainly been in development for some time before then that we were learning about. And you know what? The robo bees and the smart dust and the other smart matter that, took on its own forms based on stuff that was, fed to it and based on stimuli and this and that was a reality that everybody thought was, again, a deep conspiracy theory. Now they're rolling it out and, it's all for your benefit. The social credit system, it'll work out. Look, the monetary system's not doing so good for you, so this will work. Man, I don't know how they're going to continue to sell this crap, but it's all very, very dangerous, Steve. Very, very dangerous. And, the robo bees didn't seem to do too good for the honeybees. I'm just saying. It looks like, maybe there's a problem since they loosed those things. And those were discovered accidentally and by whistleblowers that, anonymously released stuff back then. So, DARPA, your friends at DARPA. Oh, man.
Well, and I guess people are finding boxes. The farmers are finding boxes of ticks that have been intentionally dropped off on their farms. And the ticks have like ultra potent form of Lyme disease. They're everywhere. This is by far like the worst year for ticks in a very, very, very long time, which comes after multiple years of increased tick presence everywhere. They're finding them on the beach now. Yeah, by the like it is insane. And yeah, and again, there are farmers finding boxes of them that just got dropped off to be released. It's 100% intentional. It's absolutely an operation designed to fucking maim or kill and fucking change the diet of everybody that gets a tick bite, because that's what the Lyme disease is designed to do. It makes your body unable to process meat.
Right. Well, they want us to eat bugs and worms anyway, right? Wasn't that the thing for our protein next? We're supposed to eat worms, literally, and bugs.
Yeah. They might bypass that just to get everybody on the 3D printed garbage. Which, again, I mean, all of this infrastructure that we've been talking about today, everything that has been designed to, surveil you and down to your thoughts. Isn't that fun? Down to the level of thought. Shit.
Well, that way, the investigation's done for them when they want to prosecute you for thought crimes. That way it works out, right? I mean, why not make the job easier on the investigative agencies? Matter of fact, they probably don't even need people to investigate anymore. The AI will do it for them, and they'll determine through an algorithm exactly how much hate speech you have in your mind on a daily basis, given the algorithms and the way that you react and the monitoring. And also, we can't see your eyes while you're in the kitchen. Are you falling asleep standing up? Hey, Ugh.
Yep. And it's all got to be powered. It's all got to be ran. That data's all got to go somewhere. So why not some fucking, barely inhabited stretch of land in Utah, right? Where a 62 square mile data center is being proposed. Well, this is backed by Shark Tank douche and Canadian Kevin O'Leary. So a non-U.S. citizen is perfectly willing to sacrifice a giant 60-plus square mile area in Utah, and you would imagine everything surrounding it, in order to build a data center. This is freaking crazy.
Yeah, that won't harm the ecosystem or anything, right? Of course. No, not at all. 62 square miles. Why not? Ooh.
I mean, it's the scope of it is just insane. Like, they're taking out entire freeway interchanges. But yeah, just to give people an idea, it's like, what, 3 times the size of Salt Lake City? Maybe more.
Yeah, I'm just in awe. I'm just in awe at the massive scale of the things being proposed and implemented, as people very calmly accept it. It's like nothing, nothing small about it. And of course, it would be the lowest level of scumbag in the Shark Tank universe that absolutely exploits everyone he deals with. Kevin O'Leary, that would be behind it, right? All you need now is a little Peter Thiel mixed in there, and you got it. You got it all set, right? For real bank. Oh, man.
Yep. Let's see. Where's the flock video? There it is. And I mean, like I said, we've talked a lot about flock cameras, and just how easy it is to abuse them. But I don't know. You can't hate this company enough. You can't.
The Flock CEO constantly claims their cameras have never been hacked, and this claim is plastered all over Flock's website. But YouTuber Ben Jordan did an incredible investigative report where he found extremely disturbing things about these Flock cameras.
A few weeks ago, using a commercial search engine, I very easily found the administration interfaces for dozens of Flock safety cameras. None of the data or video footage was encrypted. There was no username or password required. These were all completely public-facing for the world to see, and some of them still are. You don't have to be an expert to find and gain access to this. You don't even have to type anything in to see every single person, vehicle, and activity that took place in these locations in the last 31 days. Whether you wanted to watch this footage live in real time or look at footage from a month ago, you could just point and click your way to it like you were watching Netflix. I could watch a man rollerblade and then take a break to watch rollerblading videos on his phone. How? Because the camera's AI automatically zoomed in on it. Just like it zoomed in on a couple arguing at a street market in Atlanta. So what? They're still anonymous, right? No, they're not. Within 2 minutes of open source intelligence using a commercial facial recognition engine, I found out that one of them just finished medical school and the other is dealing with chronic irritable bowel syndrome. The couple also just had a baby last year and they have a pretty concerning debt to income ratio. I also know that they drove over 45 minutes from their address in the suburbs to attend church in Atlanta that morning, and then they checked out this market and bought a sweater. Just saying these words out loud nauseates me. But I'm trying to show you just a fraction of the information that anyone in the world with access to a commercial search engine has had regarding anyone who attended this market or walked on this trail in the last 31 days.
So if anyone's a terrorist here, maybe it's the CEO creating the dangerous AI surveillance state.
Right. And just to kind of follow up on that, police have reportedly used flock cameras to stalk romantic interests at least 14 times in recent years. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the 14 that we know about. You can extrapolate from that there's likely more, and these are the ones who got caught.
Exactly. That's who got caught. Exactly. Yeah, precisely. That's who got caught. Right. Wow.
So, an Institute for Justice review of media reports has identified at least 14 cases nationwide of officers allegedly abusing ALPR data this way, with the bulk of those incidents happening since 2024. Nearly all of these officers were criminally charged and lost their jobs either by resigning or getting fired. Good. Flock Safety and other ALPR providers emphasize they have internal safeguards to prevent this kind of misuse, but only a few of the 14 analyzed cases were initially discovered through internal investigations, according to media reports. Most incidents came to light only after victims reported the officer's behavior to the police, typically in context of a broader stalking allegation. Right. Holy fuck. Yeah, again, these are the 14 that we know about. It's only based on whatever information is already publicly available. So
and how often is this technology used? How often is this technology used to stalk somebody, surreptitiously without their knowledge because they don't actually make an approach, they just simply track them. And they do it all the time and then they don't get caught. That's again the point. They're smart enough to not get caught doing the stalking, but that's the only reason why these guys got busted, because they were over the top and obvious. But in the old days they used to run plates and check on addresses and go and get records from people and show up in their uniforms and demand records from places they weren't supposed to get them from without a warrant and things like that. But nowadays they can just press a couple of buttons and get the job done, right? So it's no fuss, no muss now. Okay.
Yep. And for anyone curious and watching right now, that number that just keeps going up and up on the left-hand side of the screen for the website we have pulled up is the estimated number of vehicles tracked since I opened this website about a minute ago. Get there if you can. Tickets will go on sale, I think, pre-sale will be like towards the end of June and then officially July 1st. So yeah, make sure that you pull up for Third Eye Carnival. Again, back at the barn there in Portland, Tennessee, the Rancho Paradiso, which I know is not actually how you say paradise in Spanish. Don't come at me. Don't come at me. But yeah, happy to be back there. And happy to welcome back to the show, Ryan Cristian. Welcome back, my friend. How you doing? Good to see you this morning.
Good morning. How are you?
All right, man. All right. Hanging in there. But yeah, stoked to start the preparations in earnest for Third Eye. Glad to be doing that back in Tennessee again.
Looking forward to it, man. Be fun.
And then you can organize an intervention with my girl about us moving to Tennessee.
Hey, well, that's one good reason to do it while we're around this amazing area with amazing people. And just out of curiosity, and I'm sure it's kind of a bad question because I'm sure the community flocks to your event because that's what it represents. But do you find one location versus the other has more of a draw or more of a kind of like a central, like local backbone of whatever anarchism, whatever you feel that's tapping into?
Well, so I mean, it's we've kind of cherry picked the locations, right? Because in Pueblo, there's Charlie Robinson's right there, Corey Hughes is there. There's a number of people who watch the show that are in and around the state, and and we have savages, man. You met them. They're down to travel.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that watch the show are current and or former road dogs. So it's like it's not a huge, the only thing that it is at this point is either resources or the ability to get out of work or something like that. And that's the only thing that's hemming a few people up. But that's why we're trying to do these in different spots. Been talking to our buddy Pavlos about going out to the opposite side of the state of California and doing at least a meetup out there. But we've got a good regional group of people from like Sacramento to Reno that will, have turned out for meetups and stuff like that in the past, and Third Eyes, as far as that,
Well, I mean more like that's what I thought is, clearly you're going to have a community that comes because you're there, whether cross state lines or whatever, or bringing out the people that are there. But I mean, like, just in your experience, do you like between Portland or whatever else? Like, I would imagine probably just like not California, let's say, versus I don't know, Tennessee or something like that. That feels, in my experience, more amenable to those kind of mindsets. Like, do you feel that one of those locations has more of a grassroots feeling behind that, what you're fighting for, than the others? Like, it's not, I'm just curious, really.
Well, it's gonna be Tennessee by default, since we're not going back to Pueblo this year. So that's kind of indicative of the culture in that community being so opposed to just in general what we're trying to do, or the approach that we're trying to take doing it,
right,
that they'll threaten to run Jeff out of town.
The whole, obviously, the point of me asking this, because I would love for you to move to Tennessee, but I was curious if, like, in a general organic way, that this might have more of that draw for you. But I was curious because I don't know, it's hard because people, we tend to make it like California Democrat state versus it's just, I don't even know if that's even the reality, like in the way that we feel that relates to the political conversation. I don't know. I mean, what it means in a real sense is that the government in California sees itself as Democrat leaning. Well, we tend to understand is that that's really an illusion when it comes down to what really matters in the long term. But within that, even still, does that mean that the people of California, by and large, believe that? I know that's what we pretend, and maybe it does. I mean, most likely, I would say, if we believe that your voting translates to the outcome, but isn't that also something that we kind of question these days? I don't know. I think it's worth questioning these kind of classical held beliefs, that the left does this, the right does that, and California's this, and immigrants vote for Democrats. Like, it's just, those things aren't even real anymore. Like, it's, there's a lean, but there's just so many things that are such bullshit.
Well,
or ideas of the left-right paradigm.
They're definitely tropes, they're like, and people fall for tropes all the time. So I mean, there's
some level of truth to it,
I mean, if you talk to any 18-year-old college student about, or maybe not even that, if you talk to any like 17-year-old high school student about what their political affiliation is, number one, it's either going to be identical to their parents or the exact polar opposite.
Yeah, right. And it likely didn't come about until they flirted with what their parents were doing and then decided to either buck it because they hate them or because they disagree, But yeah, it's funny how many people, whether it's politics or religion or anything, just sort of like by default, just I mean, as a child, that's kind of expected, but as you grow into it, that you just kind of don't even question those things, that you just accept that that's what I am because that's what I was raised with. And there's something to be said for that matters, the culture, the familial bond. But at the end of the day, it should matter what you believe, what you care about, and I think that's a lot of things are shifting in that way today,
Yeah, no, actually, both of the political parties on a certain level would probably view chopped liver as beneficial to them in some way, shape, or form. Independents are dangerous and should be ostracized immediately.
Well, this is interesting though, because this is another, it's funny how little this gets talked about, but okay. So when you say independent,
right,
what does that really mean? If you're independent, but you ultimately vote left or right, depending on, I mean, at least you're willing to stand back and consider the full breadth of the illusion, but as opposed to half of the illusion, but you're still within the illusion of the left-right paradigm as far as I see it. Of course, I could be wrong, but if you're independent in the sense that you are completely decoupled from the system, and I'm not saying if you feel voting makes a difference, I've never said you shouldn't try, but as long as you see that in my mind as one part of a larger thing that I think has been largely stolen from us, and you're that I would argue an independent mindset is positive. But if independent just means that you choose not to side with one of the two parties, but you still partake in that illusion, it's just it's a start. in my mind, but you're still trapped in that illusion, So that's why it doesn't get brought up, in my opinion, when we're discussing that, because it's just kind of an extension. I look at it the same way as the fake MAGA patriot movement that was sort of like, we're not. Two-party. They saw that we were calling it out. But anybody like was doing that, and they said, "Well, the two-party illusion." So you have rhinos and Democrats, and then the real Republicans. I'm like, well, you're just the fucking same thing. All you did was mash a bunch of Republicans into the Democrat side, and you're still a two-party illusion. It's just kind of funny, but it's all to catch up to what we're exposing.
It's yes, and to I guess to put it in terms that Vladimir Zelensky or Hunter Biden would understand, to step on, to cut what we're doing, and then sell people a diluted version of that still ultimately at the end of it steers people back into that two-party illusion that they're calling out, because we've got Thomas Massey, or we've got whoever they pick on the left to pretend isn't totally bought and paid for.
Good.
No, go ahead.
No, just out of curiosity, if Massey tomorrow said like, it was like I'm trying to think of what would be something that we like. I'm no longer even in the political system. Like, I'm trying to think of something that would still be like representing like some kind of political change in the average mindset, but like that aligns with what we would ask for. Like, he steps up and just says, something that like meets exactly what we see. Like, would there be a line at which he would do something that you would start to consider that he might be, because I know we both think of that, that we're very skeptical, but the reason I'm asking that is I do that process, that kind of experiment with myself. Like, what would it really take? A year? Things? No, probably not. I'd probably want, how long would it go until I finally said, well, maybe I'll vote or something. I don't know. It's way down the line.
I've answered this over and over and over, at least, and I'm dead serious. I am. It takes the John McAfee, Adam Kokesh plan, where within 72 hours of being elected, you begin the immediate dissolving of the overarching federal government structure.
But herein lies the problem today, right? Is that could easily be co-opted by one of the groups that's talking about 100% the imagining of the world, right? And so it seems, and this is what's so difficult for people, that they, the thing happens, they go, wasn't that what you fucking asked for? It's like, kind of, is that what they're really delivering is the question. That's what's so hard for people.
So my first series of questions before I wasn't allowed to ask anymore to Massey would be 100% along those lines. Like in the most optimal rhetorical sense, there's the reality of it ultimately looks like that. So do you have anything in place, let's say like access to the rest of the Epstein files or something like that would convince the rest of our friends and neighbors that no, it's not just politicians, the system doesn't operate without the public-private partnership, we're being kettled into a technocratic dystopia by the people who are renting the politicians. And that's, and that's just, level one government structure. There's still shit above that, pulls strings and levers and, I think is ultimately waging war against other factions that are doing the exact same thing in other countries.
I think at a bare minimum, it would be to see some level of accountability on both sides of the paradigm. A Biden Trump going to jail. You know what I mean? Which just like seems just so. I mean, at the same time, I was gonna say unlikely and like impossible. I would have said that about people what people are seeing with their Israel. Like I would have, I say it often. Like, I would have not argued that was where it didn't feel possible before that. As much as any of this, but see, that's the whole point. It is possible. Whether they let it happen because of other pressure, because it was a calculus about this versus that, it still happened, which means it is possible for people to fight against the machine or whatever you want to call it, to expose something that they don't want exposed. I think it's happening all the time. It's worth noticing that. But I never would have expected that. I would have argued that would have, at the very least, been a longer, grueling process to get that in. Well, I guess an argument it was for years and years and years until that broke. But that's the idea, is that I would like to see something like that, some kind of real, not a token, but because what would that mean if we're actually going in that direction? I mean, what president in living memory what isn't a criminal,
Right.
And so that
it's a prerequisite for the job.
Yeah, right. And okay, then even what other governments representations are not in that similar boat? It's like, okay, so this is why some average people kind of just stand back and go, okay, well, that's too big to fail. It's like, can't do that. That's just not going to work. It's like, well, okay, well, that's.
Oh no, we've got to let the criminals turn the country into a depleted resource, online casino. We've got to do that, because if we don't,
right,
well, China is gonna something.
Yeah, right. Fill in the blank. Whatever you're scared of, that's what they might do. So give us what we want. I'm sure you're probably thinking of that. Jason Basser's making that point lately about the data centers and the lie about China. It's like, just what isn't, that's what I was laughing about this just yesterday, or was whatever one of that shows was like. Why don't they give them something? It's like, you'd think if you were fucking going, if you were actually in control and you were making these decisions based on what you were, your agenda, and it wasn't some outside force basically destroying you or dictating what you do, wouldn't you go, hey, let's go ahead and just fucking give them food dyes. Let's just give them the fucking peanuts, give them the small things, so they don't think we're pieces of shit that hate them, right? But no, they can't even give you the smallest things, like the foreign beef thing I just pointed out. I'm like, well, how many little things can they fail at? It's just so infuriating. But again, that's what you and I've been saying. That's why everybody is aware of what's happening, But what I guess I'm stressing is we have to see that means that these people are either so hell-bent on doing what they want that they don't give a shit about what anybody wants and willing to destroy their reputation to do it, or they're literally not in control. Neither of those things, that we're not in control of this government, however you look at that,
Fault you for it. It's just, it's
like, this dog shit tastes like dog shit. Fuck you. It had potpourri on it. It's like, motherfucker.
Yeah. No, it's just an extra fun challenge to try to keep 3 hours worth of energy and momentum with somebody who hates everyone. I don't
hate everyone. I clarified that. I just clarified that fucking point, motherfucker. What the fuck are you talking about?
Fuck, dude. Brings no material ever.
Do you want me to be needlessly? I can be needlessly peppy, motherfucker. I'll go get some goddamn puppets and dance around your
clip. Yeah, I've seen that clip too. I've seen the clip. Fuck, dude. I'm trying to do a show. God damn.
Half the show is me like showing you. Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Teace can hang out backstage for a minute while I run the clip. Fuck me.
We have some slides.
Let me probably set this up for a little bit. They did the Netflix is a Joke festival, and there's that Tim Dillon for years and years and years has always had this obsession with looking at and making fun of real estate. And he found some reality real estate show where he convinced Netflix and the people on the show that they should come on and look at houses with them. That's the bit. He didn't tell them that he was going to spend 4 hours in makeup getting turned into fat gay John Wayne Gacy in front of, I think they knew they were coming out to an audience at Netflix as a joke, but that's kind of the setup for this. And it's just, look, if we're going to live in a fucking cartoon, there should be this kind of like, I guess, Hunger Games level of ridiculousness.
That's a good way of describing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of homes, and I want you guys to tell me how you would sell. Now, this is the first.
Selling Sunset. That's it. I heard him talking about it on a different show. But yeah.
Slide.
I sold one like that, season 1.
I want you to look at this because you can see there's a view of the mountain. There's still a fireplace.
I would emphasize all the natural light.
It is gorgeous. No, it has a lot of light. All right, the next slide. Now, this one I like. This one, what do you think of that style of house? Would you guys live in a house? Would you live in a house? Would you live in a house like this? All right, next slide. This is great. This is an island. Now, this is an island, and you have privacy, and you can do whatever you want. And if you want to know what happened there, you could ask the co-founder of this company. Anyway. Our next slide here. Now, this is more for an institutional investor that has a global vision.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I wish that we had the full uncomfortable silence of Tim Dillon dressed as a serial killer showing real estate agents in like Orange County or Hollywood or LA or whatever. Fucking the complete destroyed wasteland that is Gaza.
Well, real estate.
I'm gonna play it to see what they do, but go ahead. Yeah.
Real estate agents aren't, in my understanding, allowed to have opinions on anything because they could lose clients. It's kind of like back when Michael Jordan, like during the Rodney King riots. I think it was something like, I don't remember exactly exactly the time frame or the context of the statement, but it was something like Republicans buy shoes too. The idea being that he would never get political because everyone was a customer.
Right. So yeah, just the and look, let's be honest. At least where Charlie does real estate in Vegas, the competition there is strippers who got a real estate license.
Yeah, I've actually worked with one of those strippers who got a real estate license. We went to film school together.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go back to this.
That's for an institutional investor that has a global vision. You guys represent a lot of investors. All right, our next slide. Now, this is an interesting one. This is interesting because now, so this is commercial real estate. Many people think that looks like a starfish.
I do love the idea of forcing those clouds to be just I don't know, maybe they'll feel better about selling a fucking $17 million fuck dungeon that was once owned by David Geffen or something like that. Maybe.
It's a great bit. It's really funny.
Dude. Oh boy. Let's see. I did want to talk about the whole "we're all terrorists" thing. So I don't. You guys remember a character from the previous Trump administration, Sebastian Gorka, right? He was what, part of the first Trump administration. Now he's over on like Newsmax or something like that. He was very happy about the contents of the new well, here, I'll show that first because we'll get into it. But yeah, the U.S. counterterrorism strategy. Very excited about that.
Dr. Gorka is with us, who is one of the top advisors to the president, the top advisor he's got on terrorism. We have just seen the announcement of the president's new counterterrorism strategy, which is, I think, probably the culmination of decades of work from Dr. G, and is something that I think sets America on a track to be much safer.
Oh, it's his baby. The everyone who doesn't lick Trump's asshole is a terrorist act is Gorka's baby. Oh, that's even better. It's even better.
We're going to get all the details with you, so this is a pretty big deal. So let's talk a little bit about the domestic terror, how we're addressing it. And I want to get your thoughts on any right-wing terror that's out there. But before we do, because I really am curious your actual answer, if there's any from what you're tracking. And I know you see, you're a straight shooter with me, Dr. G, so you'll tell me if there is. But we've seen so much left-wing terror, really dating back to Occupy, which was pretty violent. We had that, remember Andrew Breitbart's fame, "Stop raping the people" comment. But then we, of course, have seen multiple assassination attempts against President Trump. We don't know if any of them come from any organized groups. I don't think, but maybe individuals, rogue individuals. Then we're seeing stuff like the SPLC, which is astroturfing right-wing terrorism. We saw a study the day we're recording this, Dr. G, that it was from CNN of all places, showing that anti-Semitic attacks are at an all-time high. We know this is from, I don't know, people who are on the left-right political spectrum, but certainly people who aren't voting for President Trump. We'll tell you that. Those are the people who are those types of attacks. So,
yeah, so as far as I said, positive, like for the chat, yeah, no, Occupy wasn't violent. They were violent against it. And nothing he said is actually really true. I mean, parts of it are true, but the basis for what he's communicating is not true whatsoever.
No, it's a pure propaganda line of bullshit.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of us that were all there that watched the cops roll up, fucking beat the shit out of anybody they could. And then as soon as people started like getting back up and being like, what the fuck? That's when all the cameras started rolling, and anybody that was retaliating from that got billed as violent. The first several like weeks of Occupy, there wasn't even a medical tent anywhere. That was a necessity after the fucking cops started coming in and cracking fucking skulls.
And Keith McHenry talked about them literally rolling up and dropping off people who were about to die in order to try and frame things. So it's like, for people who don't understand how pure, violent, next level, deranged, and evil the state is, you need to understand any framing of violence of people who are trying to use their voice against power is probably a rigged game from the onset. So fuck this fucking lowlife, godforsaken piece of shit who's farting out his face and pretending he has the ability to speak. He's nothing but a bitch.
So back to this little bitch so that we can get to the part where they start talking about why we're all terrorists. And it's a good thing that people with highly popular and influential media shows in the digital space are being labeled as terrorists.
Let's come back to right-wing extremism. Do you regard it as a threat at all, or anything that's important to be considering right now? Because the SPLC revelations, I feel like we just got the tip of the iceberg. We don't really know how deep it goes. I mean, is there any? I guess that's the question. I'm assuming there's a little bit, because it's a big country. There's a little bit of everything. But is there really anything?
So right now, I can tell you that we need to get to the bottom of what the SPLC engendered. If you are paying alleged putative conservative extremists, then you're funding them as a left-wing organization, then what is that? Is that left-wing extremism or right-wing extremism? That is why it is imperative that what the FBI is doing, what the money trail investigations by, God bless him, Scott Besson, will lead us to, will be crucial to understanding the real threat picture in America. But right now, we are not seeing comparable trend lines to violence on the right as we see on the left? And also, can I get extemporaneously just kind of add a little addition here?
Please.
Well, typically, when you see violence from what people would consider the right, it's more institutionalized in the first place. Like you get a couple of limited hangout skinhead gangs or whatever, but it's kind of when the institutional power is inherently authoritarian or fascist, that kind of defaults to what people think as traditionally right wing. So when all of your instruments of authority are running around committing crimes and shit like that, that could and should be considered right wing violence, they're not gonna,
it's kind of just like one giant sphere of influence that pretends it's polarities in order to suck people into the abyss, which is the utmost darkness in alignment with the force of involution. That's what government is. So it's a moot point that they have to continue to bang the drum of, because then they can get your heartbeat to fall in line with it. And
sure,
just like the terror factory a la FBI. So left and right, who gives a fuck? It's marching to the beat of the drum.
Well, and there's the broader point is that it doesn't matter whether they label one group a left wing or a right wing terror group, or if they're focusing on one group or another. When they put these policies into effect and when they pass these counter-terror things that just expand previous definitions, they're not separating a group of people and calling them domestic terrorists. They're lumping them into all of the other categories that are also intentionally broadly defined to include as many people as possible.
Yeah,
Has nothing to do with left wing or right wing.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the stork.
It's up to people like you. I'm not a political analyst anymore. I'm a counterterrorism government employee.
Yeah.
But we have to have an effective, accurate snapshot on who are part of the conservative movement today. Because I would say to you, I'm not sure that Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson are conservatives. If you are lauding a Sharia law, if you are saying that there are Muslim states that seem to be better qualitatively than America in terms of freedom and prosperity, I'm not sure that means you're part of the conservative movement. So if you remove those individuals and you understand that they're not conservatives, what's left? Who are the people in the mainstream of the conservative movement, Alex, who are saying violence is okay?
So you see how it's shaping up, right? What he's trying to do and how he's trying to paint like anybody who isn't going along with whatever insanity that the Trump administration is putting is inherently a Qatari-funded, Muslim-loving, America apple pie, and the flag-hating terrorist. I love how the introduction to the strategy is good versus bad counterterrorism. This is retarded. It's Donald Trump sucking his own dick for a few paragraphs. Counterterrorism is a core part of the national security mission. Primary objective is to protect Americans from being harmed by terrorist groups, deter and undermine the support they receive from enemy actors. Blah, blah. Okay, they're saying they're not going to politically target people like the Biden administration did. They're just going to include everybody as a domestic violent extremist. so that they won't have to individually politically target people. Streamlining the process, as it were. The terrorist threat has changed. We face new categories, combination. I don't know why I'm going to W. Bush with this, but violent actors that make the established ways of doing counterterrorism insufficient or obsolete. So we need a reset. We need an upgrade. We need to go ahead and have a new order to how we do counterterrorism. Currently, the U.S. faces three major types of terror groups: narco terrorists and transnational gangs, legacy Islamist terrorists, like the ones the good old CIA established back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. The legacy ones. Are you hearing anything different when you read that?
None of this. It's literally just reframing the jargon. It's the same thing as the National Defense Authorization Act, fusion centers, all the various different precursors to this. If anything, it's almost like they're bringing it out again to try and get people to be more anti-Orange Man bad, which is fine because he's a demonic retard cuck who has no agency of his own. He's literally just like an actor in office to Andy Kaufman wrestle women and get everyone pissed at him. So that's what he's doing. He's wrestling the average bitch that is the American person who still votes harder.
Violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and anti-fascists. So if you're one of those people that may think that the state is an illegitimate institution and that we are perfectly capable of, coexisting together without a weaponization of force and violence, taxation, extortion, you are as bad as a narco terrorist or a transnational gang.
Well, like, really important qualifier. Anyone out there who is using violence as a method to try and uproot the state, you're fucking retarded. You're emboldening the situation and you're making it worse. So people who are against authoritarianism, tyranny, and all that, good for you. Congratulations. Technically, you have the right to fight back, but it's strategically retarded and not advantageous to you or anyone else whatsoever. It only emboldens the enemy. So that's why decommissioning the state, removing your participation, exiting and building, creating alternative systems, and going out there and encouraging other people to understand all of that is what revolution looks like. So in one sense, there's a glimmer of truth in there, but they're conflating things.
Let's take a look at the goals of the current counterterrorism strategy. They would like to identify terror actors and plots before they happen, which, pre-crime, right? Total surveillance and pre-crime. That's how you do that. You cut off their arms fundings and recruiting streams. Well, that also sounds like control of, every component of manufacturing, along with money and communications. Wouldn't you have to have those things in order to achieve that? Ultimately destroy established threat groups. So the United States government is going to go after the CIA to dismantle the terror groups that they've created here and around and abroad. Okay. This necessitates designation of cartels and transnational gangs as FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations, to make the available additional intelligence authorities and deny and disrupt their financial streams access to the U.S. Taking necessary and specific actions in self-defense to neutralize imminent threats to the United States, which is a reiteration of their bullshit premise for why they need to blow up every boat in the Caribbean. ban the, Western Pacific, Southwestern Pacific. Let's see. Series of similar high intensity but short campaigns against the 5 jihadist groups deemed by the CIA as the most dangerous and capable of external operations targeting the American homeland and U.S. citizens. This includes the United States creations, Al Qaeda and ISIS. Hooray. Diplomatic, financial, cyber, and covert actions to undermine or deter inimical state actors from assisting designated FTOs, whether cartels, jihadists, or violent left-wing radicals. Blah, 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 blah. 5 functional aspects.
Okay, so like here's the long story short. Illegitimate terrorist organization that is your government claims other terrorist organizations are a threat to its alleged legitimacy and has put out a bunch of legalese gobbledygook to scare everybody so that they become violent so that they can crack down on violence and make it a more authoritarian hellscape.
I mean, I'm not sure. It seems like the last, I don't know, 25 years minimum has been the government trying to stoke people to violence, and people just aren't really into that. And I don't know. People that by and large might be aware of what's going on, but also seem to have come to terms with it in a lot of ways and are just like, yeah, no, digital prison, whatever. Sure. Shut up.
That's exactly it. I think as long as people have their Netflix subscription, they're cool with the gulag.
Right.
That's because as long as it's comfortable, they'll go along with it. And I think they'll make it comfortable all the way to death, which is what MAID is going to be. I really do think this is just like they've created a frictionless conveyor belt that takes people into an incinerator. And everyone doesn't feel the heat until they've already gone over the ledge.
Right.